All right. Larry Elder was on The Breakfast Club. I'm curious about it. Hopefully this video doesn't get like DMCA'd or something. It is on YouTube. But yeah, this is on The Breakfast Club. As always, link in the description. But sorry, they talk about racism, fatherlessness, and Black America, et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious about it. It seems to be a little buzz. There seems to be some buzz around it. So
in the morning.
Guy, we are The Breakfast Club. We have Teslin Figueroa with us. And we got a special guest in the building, 2024 Republican presidential candidate, Larry Elder. Welcome, brother.
Right. Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor.
How you feeling?
I feel good.
He does more than that, though. I mean, he was a radio host.
Radio host for 40 years.
Author, TV
author,
host.
New York Times best-selling list. Got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Corner of Hollywood and Vine, Southeast
oh, that's cool.
corner, just saying.
Okay.
I didn't know you had a star on Hollywood Walk of Fame,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, about a handful of radio guys do, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, I think it's you, Elvis Duran,
Angie
Howard
Martinez?
Stern,
Yeah.
Big Boy.
Good for him.
Angie
Martinez.
A guy named Arthur Godfrey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it. Why are you running for president?
Well, I'm running as an America
I didn't even know that he had a star on the. And that's pretty cool.
First mega guy, and we have an America First mega guy running, obviously. So the question is, what do you bring to the table?
You say MAGA.
MAGA.
Okay.
And the answer
But he is running as an American First MAGA guy. Okay.
is I bring a lot of issues to the table that I feel our side is not talking enough about, if at all.
Okay.
For example, the #1 social problem in America, by far, is the epidemic not of COVID, but fatherlessness.
Sure. I agree with
70% of
that.
black kids today enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once cited them. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with all that. I wonder why he thinks that this is like why he thinks this happened. Because to me, when I look at it, there's probably a lot of different factors. You know, I think that there is a less of a respect of a religious institution, and I think a lot of that has to do with how historically hateful religion has been, and exclusionary of like gay people. Because like a lot of people will be like, you know, you see a lot of Republicans being very anti-LGBTQ, and it's a big turn off to religion for people. I think the dynamic is shifting. I think that the only real solution we can come up with is probably financial expansion in the lower and middle class. Honestly, I know it's cliche because I mean, like, hey, what else do I really say? But you know, what other solution is there really? You know, give people the opportunity to just, I don't know, better educate. I mean, I think better education will probably keep people together so they can make better decisions about who they want to be with. More money to have less stress into relationships. There's factors like that. So
In the mid-'60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And since then, we have incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility.
yeah, maybe. I mean, like they talk about welfare. That's another thing. Like, yeah, sure. There's maybe a level of truth to that. Kind of. I wonder. I think it's more education than anything else. I would say, like, I'm down for I'm down for a shifting of welfare to something a little better, because there is a dependency that is generated on people who go on welfare. I don't think that. I mean, the safety, the measurements are good. It's a good thing to have the security net. I just think that with everything needs to be improved. I think that the conditionality of like, oh, you can't really make any more money or do well in some capacity, because that's one of the things. Like sometimes if you make too much money at a job, you might lose your welfare. You know, if you get a job, you might lose your welfare. If we remove those negative conditions and we implement something more like a universal basic income that's unconditional money, I think it would reduce the incentive to, I think it would, or rather it would provide an incentive to actually get employment, right? But we need some kind of robust welfare program.
You know, when I say this to people, the pushback I get is, well, there are lots of things that are going on: systemic racism, poverty. Here's the problem.
That's true.
If you look at a young black male aged 10 to 43, that's young to me because I'm 71 years old.
Said 43.
A young black man in that demo is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man, same demo.
Sure.
Young black man, real young, 19 and under, the #1 cause of preventable death is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black male.
Sure.
Same demo for whites, the #1 cause of preventable death is unintentional deaths. That includes drug overdoses, automobile accidents, drownings. It's not until they get to #4 that death is the cause. In America, 60% of the shootings, the robberies, and the homicides are committed by black people, often against other black people. Of the homicides in this country, half of them are black victims, almost all killed by other blacks. How do you explain that if it isn't for the absence of fathers? Are you prepared to say black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime? I doubt it.
No, that's what people would say systemic racism. Like it's generally a lack of access to opportunity overall. Like, you know, the destruction of like Black Wall Street, you know, all these different factors would generally, they just sit there. Like they've created a culture that could be very negative. It's nothing to do with any genetic aspect of black people. Anybody who was put under the same like historical stressors as black people were in America would behave the exact same way. But yeah, sure. I mean, I think fathers are part of it. I don't think that's the entire solution. Right? I come from a single mother as well, and I didn't have the same problem because my mom made decent money, so she was able, and we had a strong family unit overall, so we were able to kind of subsidize, so to speak, the lack of a father, which I think is another factor.
And the go-to reaction often is poverty and systemic racism. Here's the problem.
Sure.
1940, when there was blatant racism. This is before Brown versus Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Act of 64. KKK was still alive and well. 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Now it's about 14%. You can't blame it on poverty. You can't blame it on racism. It is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and neither side is talking about it. The left.
Why can't you blame it on poverty? I'm not understanding that. You can still blame it on poverty. I think that there's something to explore where there is a different relationship with poverty nowadays than there used to be. You know, back in the day, they didn't have social media, and that might seem silly to you. And like, well, what does that matter? Well, what it matters is like if you look across the street and you see your neighbors doing better than you, you're going to harbor some resentment. Like out of sight, out of mind is a very real thing. And so if you're somebody who's really poor, but then you see on TV people living in incredibly lavish luxury lifestyles, all of a sudden you start to generate an anger and a resentment and a feeling of feeling inadequate. And I think that social media is part of the problem too. You know, I think that you could also argue that there's a particular problem in black communities too, because it's been so long of being oppressed that people are just finally given up and stopped caring. But I think a lot of it has to do with just how I really do think a lot of it has to do with like looking at social media and seeing people better than you, because we all can resonate with the idea that we see somebody doing well on social media and it makes us upset. I mean, one of the biggest problems is just like looking on there and see like, look at this guy, he's doing so well, and they only show you the best parts of their lives. They never show you the negative parts of your lives. There are definitely different communities who like prioritize like, oh, I wish I had a watch, or I had a really nice car, or I had a this, or I had a that, and overspending, over consumerism. I think poverty is a factor. And the problem is that when you focus too much on fatherlessness, which is I would say a symptom of a greater problem, like what are you going to do? Are you going to force people to be in their houses? Because then like it's probably just going to create increased amounts of abuse, because people who stay into relationships that they hate, they don't tend to be particularly happy, and then abusive scenarios happen. We saw during COVID, more people were home, more people were together, there was less money, and we saw a spike of abuse. So like fatherlessness is a great thing to call out, but like how do you deal with the problem of fatherlessness in communities?
Left doesn't talk about it because they caused it with the welfare state, and our side does not talk about it because if you're white,
I don't think that the left caused it with the welfare state necessarily. I think welfare works really well until it's in a poor area. I think that welfare programs work really well in like middle class areas, because like let's say welfare, the concept of it is that, you know, you take a hit and you have a little bit of a stepping stool to be like, okay, I have a breather, I could potentially get my stuff back together and like everything back together and handled, and you know, yada yada. That works pretty well, unless you're in a poor community where you can't go back and get a job necessarily because there aren't as many jobs available. And so for poorer areas, all of a sudden, like you're on welfare, it's like, okay, that's kind of nice, right? It's kind of cool that I have like a safety net. I have like a little bit of balance in my life, you know? But then at the same time, you're kind of SOL, so to speak, at a certain point, because you're not going to be able to get that job, and then you know it's going to breed complacency, because you might lose your welfare if you do, and then your kids grow up on welfare, and then they generate like a similar thought, feeling, and perspective, and then it's kind of just a repeating cycle over and over and over and over again. So welfare isn't bad. Welfare got us out of the Great Depression, right? We need welfare programs. That is, it literally is a sign of a society that is succeeding. Without welfare, we will fall. Do I think that there needs to be better regulation on it and an update to it? Sure. That's why I'm like a fan of like a UBI or something. But welfare overall isn't like a bad thing. Just to be able to be clear, welfare does keep people alive. So
Be accused of dissing single moms who are heroically raising these kids, or you'll be accused of being a racist, or if you're black, you'll be accused, as I was by the LA Times, of being the blackface of white supremacy. Nobody's talking about that. I am.
What are the reasons, if your statistics are right, what are the reasons that you think fathers aren't in the home?
As I said, it's because in the mid-'60s, Lyndon Johnson launched what we call the War on Poverty. In Charlemagne, literally, they sent social workers door to door in the inner city. I remember this, advising women of the availability of welfare provided there was no man in the house. It created an economic incentive for women to marry the government.
yeah,
Same
there
thing with
might be a
whites.
little truth to that, sure.
In 1965, 8% of whites entered the world without a father in the home, married to the mother. Now it's about 25%, also up threefold. Look at census data, 1910, 1920, 1930, in places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia, a young black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home married to the mother than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Let me ask you a question. What do white
Yeah,
people
you
do
sure.
wrong, Larry Elder?
What do you mean, what do white people do? I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
If there's
What does it mean? What does white people do wrong? What does that mean?
systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe there's
No,
systemic
there used to
racism?
be, obviously. Tell me what you think the number one systemic example of systemic racism is in America.
I think that like the number one example of systemic racism isn't anything on paper, right? Like systemic, like on paper, black people are equal. I think it's just the trends that have been set over hundreds of years. You don't just like black people weren't considered people until 1965. It takes longer than 60 years for your one generation for your, you and your family to get out of poverty. So yeah, systemic racism exists. You could argue that some of the voting restrictions on poor black areas are systemic racism, saying, hey, you need to have a license, which I understand having a voting license. It makes perfect sense to have a voter's ID. But then you realize that those people in those areas may be too poor. And there's white people in those areas too, but they're disproportionately black. They may be too poor to get a license. Or you'll say that like you can only vote. Like there were different restrictions where they weren't allowed to vote on Sundays. Last year you could vote every day of the week. And they were like, no, we should make it so they can't vote on Sunday. And the reason for not let people vote on Sundays is because there was a limited amount of transportation. So you would go to church on Sunday and then church would bring you to vote, right? So it's like, oh, let's target that. Or you weren't allowed to give out food on the lines. And it's like, okay, those lines were really long because in poor areas, there's not as many voting stations. So if you want to vote, you have to go to a very populated area. And so you could argue that as well. But I think that the trends have just kind of sat and stewed. I don't think that's really changed. So.
Oh man, there's so many.
Just give me the most important one.
At the top of mind, I'll probably maybe mass incarceration, maybe.
Really? During the Great Depression, when 50% of black adults were unemployed, you didn't have this kind of mass incarceration. It's to break down the family. There's a direct.
I'm not going to.
I think that in general, when anybody tries to provide you with one simple solution to a problem, there is something wrong. Whether they might be trying to be intentionally disingenuous, or maybe they're just not. They don't know what they're talking about, because it's very rare in life that there is a singular solution to a problem. Most of the time there are multiple issues that are going on, and it's rarely as easy as like, no, it's this one thing. It's like, no, it's not. There's a lot of. Is that a problem? Absolutely. But is it just that one thing? No, I don't think it's honest to suggest that either.
I agree with the family part. I'm a black man who is a father to his children. I'm a happily married black man to a black woman, so I'm never going to argue with that part. But I just feel like everything is black with you. Black is wrong. Black people do this and black people do that. And when I ask you what white people do wrong, you said you're not worried about white people at all.
I'm talking about the damage, disproportionate damage going on in the black community. For example, look at these smash and grabs that are taking place in Los Angeles, where I live. There's a suburb called Glendale, where at a mall recently, a mob of 30 to 40 people, they had masks on, but one guy got popped. He was black. And I think most of those who were doing this were black. And in recent years and times, there have been a number of these in places like Chicago, places like New York. If I were involved in something like that, Charlemagne, I grew up with a dad, just as you're raising your own children. I would have been more afraid of my father than I would about the cops catching me. These kids are afraid of neither. They don't have a father in the home.
I feel that I'd be more afraid of my mother catching me on some shit than anything else. I'm fucking terrified.
Cops are demoralized. They're pulling back. The manpower is short, and as a
there's
result,
there's probably levels of truth to this. Properly funding defund the police is a stupid mentality. What you need to do is make sure the police have appropriate funds, more than anything else. So I mean, cops may not have the amount of manpower that they need to have. So
guy, you're less likely to be caught, convicted, incarcerated. Crime goes up. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid. When you say, what do white people do? I mean, this is a country that has struggled mightily to get over its historic racism. There was a civil war. There was a big civil rights movement. This is the only majority white country that's ever elected a black president, let alone re-elected a black president. The three biggest cities in America are New York, Chicago, LA. They all have black mayors, even though no city has a majority of black population. The president of Harvard is a black female. Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlemagne, gave an interview to the BBC. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64 got passed.
Hey, I'll give an interview to a BBC if you know what I'm saying.
And he said, I'm amazed at how many positive changes there have been in America in the last 2 years. Why, if things keep going like this, we could have a black president in about 40 years' time. Do the math. Right on cue, Barack Obama, elected 2008. He didn't say there'll be a black female president of Harvard, and there has been. He didn't say there are going to be black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and there have been several. He didn't say the percentage of the House would equal the percentage of black people in the population, and it does. He didn't say the three largest cities would have black mayors, and they do. He didn't say the largest and most prestigious organization of doctors, the American Medical Association, would have 2 black presidents, and there have been. He didn't say the most prestigious organization of lawyers, the American Bar Association, would have 2 black presidents, and they have. He said president, meaning at that point, I can feel that I've reached the mountaintop, which is a speech he gave right before he got assassinated, the day before. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected. And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair, it's wrong, and you're discouraging.
Well, yeah, but I don't think systemic racism is as simple as a black guy got elected, right? Because now people blame Obama. Like, I hear people talking about how bad Obama was, and like the big part of it's because they think he was black, right? I'm not saying everywhere does this. Like, I mean, obviously systemic racism has gotten better. Like, let's not pretend that it hasn't. That would be silly. That would be some fine, silly goosery of you. But to just say that it's not a factor at all, and you don't even have to give a shit about systemic racism. Just care about the poverty issue, because I think a lot of it manifests in a poverty issue more than anything else. But
black people from working hard. 1996.
Okay. Mr. Elder, quick question. Let's just remove the word racism, since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system.
Okay.
You mentioned that the system
so
was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the black family, should certainly have some room for some improvement. But let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to the question. So the question is, you said that the system encouraged black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
I understand where she's going. She's actually not necessarily wrong. It's actually smart to be like, well, you're saying that this is a system problem. You're saying that systemic racism. She's actually, I see where she's going. I know she got a lot of heat, and so she might end up fumbling as time goes on. But what she's doing right now is she's saying, okay, you're saying that systemic racism doesn't exist, and then you're saying that the welfare state created single motherhood. Okay, well, who created welfare? Oh, politicians. Oh, well, who runs the system, right? Politicians, right? I don't think it's unreasonable to say that, and listen, there's goods and bads to welfare, of course. But if your take is that you think that welfare has ruined the black family, that's systemic racism. that would be considered some, or at the very least, systemic oppression. Right? It's an interesting concept.
And who were Democrats? Were they black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of black people were Democrats, as majority of black people are Democrats now.
I think that there are probably black politicians too that agree with this stuff. My understanding is that, like, with the crime bill that ended up putting a lot of black people away, and it kind of caused a bigger problem, there were a lot of black politicians who agreed with the increasing the policing of black areas, because they thought that would have been the solution. So they don't have to be black or white for it to be some kind of systemic oppression.
The voters, I'm talking about the system. Remember, the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time. The system. I'm just going to Charlemagne's point about white or black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system, or black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well,
probably majority white, but
if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the black family, I disagree. He did it with the best.
No, he doesn't have to. It doesn't, that's one of the interesting things, is that, what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions or something. It doesn't have to even be hateful for it to be a form of oppression. Sometimes people can mean very well. They can unintentionally, cause harm. So
best of intentions. And if you look at the New York Times, which is left wing, Washington Post, which is left wing, they cheered all of this.
Right, and what I'm asking was, it white people? So I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly.
The problem here is that, she's not necessarily wrong, but she's being so condescending that she's not going to be well. This is why she wasn't well received.
Was it white people in charge of the system, or black people in charge of that system that helped break down the black family? It's a simple yes, just a simple question: white or black?
Well, you didn't have to go on welfare unless you voluntarily chose to go on welfare. The inducement was put there.
Yeah, sure, but like nobody's gonna not take advantage of. You kind of be kind of stupid to not take advantage of some kind of like a system. If anybody here is, hey, I'll give you, you can get some free money from the government. If you're, we're all doing it. Everybody's going to do it. So the idea that like, no, you didn't have to do it. It's like, well, it's unrealistic to expect people not to be like, oh, this could help. Because that's what it was designed for, help. It wasn't designed to potentially have a problem. And again, welfare is great, but the problem is in poorer areas, it's like there's not enough other jobs that are better than welfare for people to incentivize people to get off of it. So.
By Democrats, by
White
the
Democrats,
left.
correct? Okay. White
Well,
Democrats,
most black people were Democrats, and they voted for these white people
not
too.
voters. I said who's in charge of the system.
Well, who put them in charge?
Was Lyndon Johnson white?
Well, that's true. Like, I mean, if you're voting for somebody, you're voting for their ideas. Like, of course, it's going to be part of it.
Black.
Who put them in
Maybe
charge?
that'll help.
Fine. Lyndon Johnson was white.
Thank you.
Okay. But if your argument is that the reason he did it is because of racism, then I disagree. He did it because of.
That's not my argument. I just asked you a simple question: was he white or black, Charlamagne?
And Mr. Elder, you said you thought.
Oh, she's not going to see this. Why not elaborate on the point? I get her point. It's not a bad point. Elaborate on it. But she's just gonna let it. She's gonna let it ride, baby. She's gonna let it ride. Damn.
Talked about the smash and grabs, right? And I find that interesting because when you see the mass shootings that happen, majority of those people are white males. What do you think about that?
Actually,
I don't think that that's actually true. I think the majority of the mass shootings that are reported are white males, but I'm pretty sure mass shootings by race, I'm pretty sure they're somewhat even across. Like, they're somewhat even. Like, I don't think that they're actually skewed as being white. They are, so there's 76% of it's white, 26% is black. So there's white people are about 60% of the population, so it seems to be disproportionately higher amount of white people causing that. However, that being said, 15% of the population is black, so there's disproportionately higher white and black people actually causing mass shootings. The point is that the media is not really showing you white individuals, so it's something to keep in mind.
If you look at the percentage of whites in America, which is 60%, the percentage of mass shooters is under that. The percentage of people that commit hate crime is under that. The percentage of people who are serial killers is under that. Black people are 13% of the population. We commit a greater percentage compared to that of mass shootings.
You talked about the smash and grabs, though. So I was saying, since you're using that as an example, I'm saying, well, what about the mass shooters that are usually white males?
One more time, they are usually white males because 60% of the country is white. However, they underrepresent in terms of the number.
From what we just looked at, that's not true. They don't underrepresent. Well, this was from 1982. Either way, to 2023. But either way, it doesn't seem to be the case that there is an underrepresentation. Well, there seems to be a bit of an overrepresentation of white people and black people when it comes to mass shootings. So
mass shootings. About 50% or so of the mass shootings in this country are committed by white people, even though white people are 60% of the population.
I mean, maybe he's operating on different statistics I don't know about. I could be wrong, but
they underrepresent. We overrepresent when it comes to hate crime, when it comes to mass shootings, when it comes to serial killings, when it comes to robberies, when it comes to virtually every category of violent crime. We overrepresent.
So what do white people do wrong? I'm gonna keep asking you that because I want.
It seems to me.
I don't know, man. It seems like the problem here is that these individuals, Breakfast Club individuals, are just not prepared to have a conversation with like an educated person. Not to be rude, but that's what it seems like is the issue more than anything else, if I'm being honest with you.
Rather than deal with what's going on, the pathology that's going on in the inner city, you want me to talk about how bad white people are, which I don't think is a particularly productive thing to do.
I think there's a cause and effect, but if we can't talk about the cause, which I believe is systemic racism and white supremacy, the FBI said.
Well, I just told you, if it's systemic racism, please explain to me how it was when America really had systemic racism in 1940. 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Again, this is during Jim Crow era. My father is from Athens, Georgia, grew up in Jim Crow. My mom is from Huntsville, Alabama, grew up in Jim Crow. 87% of blacks lived below the poverty line. This is before Brown versus Board of Education. You did not find these kind of black on black crime.
Probably because we had no
but they still were living
ourselves.
below the poverty line, though, sir.
I'm sorry?
You're forgetting the fact that they were still living below the poverty line. You're picking and choosing, saying this was good, but this was bad.
Okay.
The bottom line, they end between the poverty line. But let's move.
I mean, I feel like, because I actually disagree with Larry Elder's overall assertion that systemic racism doesn't exist, but I understand the logic he's coming from. Is like, hey, like life is better overall for black people now, and yet it seems like there's a worse problem in the community. So how is this a systemic racism problem? Like I said, I think social media is a lot more invasive and damaging, than we give it credit for. When you, again, if you make let's say you make $30,000 a year and you're living in a community with a bunch of other people making $30,000 a year, and you see your neighbor, and you and your neighbor, you're all kind of just chilling, you're having the same stuff, you're doing the same things, you're probably like not going to be super distressed about it, even if you're living a decent life because you live in like, an area where it's sustainable. But let's say somebody moved in across the street that made like $200,000 a year, and all of a sudden, like, you're seeing that they're throwing parties, they have a really nice car, like they're buying like fucking trampolines, they're doing all this. You're gonna look at that and you're gonna get worn down, because I know, and I think it's a very common experience. Go on the internet and I'll see somebody, especially if it's somebody that like I grew up with on TikTok, and they'll be doing well, and it's like I can't help but be a little jealous. I don't let any hatred come and be like, wow, fuck this person. But I think it's I can't help but be a little jealous and go like, damn, like what did I do wrong? And then you start to get in your feels. And I think that that's something that everybody experiences in different ways. And so when you're on social media, you're on Instagram, and you're seeing some dude, like you're a guy and maybe you have a decent job, and you just see some other guy with like, he's got a fucking Rolex or a really nice car, he's got all these status symbols, that makes you go, fuck, what am I doing wrong? And then part of it's you start prioritizing your money incorrectly. All of a sudden you're focusing on buying status symbols instead of taking care of what you have to take care of. And we know that this is real because we actively acknowledge this when it comes to girls. When it comes to girls seeing other girls on the internet, that like we talk all the time about like these unrealistic beauty standards that are destroying women and their attitudes and their bodies, and it's making them feel really shitty about themselves, because they'll see like, look at the beauty, the expectation of beauty for these young girls in it, right? And we see that on Instagram and we see it on Twitter, right? So we accept that this is a huge part, and I think that's a big factor with it.
Well, can I just address that? In 1940, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. 1960, that number had fallen to 47%. That's a 40-point drop in 20 years. That's the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion for black people in the history of America. Again, well before Brown versus Board of Education, well before the KKK.
What is the poverty line? What did he say?
Black people fallen to 47%. That's a 40-point drop. 87% of blacks live
between the poverty line. But let's move forward.
Well, can I just address that? In 1940, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. 1960, that number had fallen to 47%.
So here's the thing. I'm going to look twice. I think I'm right about this. What is the poverty line? I think the poverty line is $12,000 a year. Is there, my question, and I could just be ignorant, my understanding. Okay, my question is like, does the poverty line, or did it back in 1940, 1960, did it shift? Did the poverty line shift? I don't know how we define it. If we define it based on a sliding scale, good. If not, let's say the poverty line was like $4,000, I don't know, back then in 1940, and the poverty line was still $4,000 in 1965, whatever. Obviously, it's going to shift because of inflation is going to make it seem like more people are making more money, even though that not necessarily based on the value of a dollar. That's the only reason I have that question. But okay.
It's a 40-point drop in 20 years. That's the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion for black people in the history of America.
Yeah, I'm sure that was just a huge economic expansion for all people as well.
Again, well before Brown versus Board of Education, well before the KKK.
Sure, and then black people doing better doesn't necessarily mean that there weren't any inequalities that didn't need to be addressed. You understand what I'm saying, right? There may have still been inequalities where they maybe should have been doing a little bit better.
Imploded well before we had race-based preferences. Why? Because it was rare for a black kid to be raised in a family without a father in the home, a strong belief in Judeo-Christian values, a belief in patriotism, even as America wasn't applying these values to black people, obviously, and a belief in entrepreneurship. All those things are now under assault by organizations like Black Lives Matter. Charlemagne, Black Lives Matter had on their website an attack on the nuclear family. The founders are self-described Marxists, trained Marxists.
The problem with this argument more than anything else is that we've been seeing this problem before the rise of Black Lives Matter. Because I get it, like the BLM the BLM movement in general was fine, but like the leaders of the organization seem to be not great. But we were seeing problems here before there was any social advocacy for like BLM. Right? We see with the Great Recession, black people took like the hardest hit out of anybody else. But I think black and indigenous people took like the hardest hit. Because people who are poor they don't have as much breathing room to be able to sustain through some kind of a recession. Black people were and are disproportionately poor. So
Marx wanted to dethrone God, was an atheist, and Marx did not believe in capitalism, let alone entrepreneurship. All the things that made black people still survive in virulent racism are now under attack by organizations like Black Lives Matter.
All of those things have always been under attack by white supremacy. You can go back to things like whether it's the Tulsa race massacres. Like every time black people do create these systems that are our systems and we are the entrepreneurs, it seems like white supremacy finds a way to destroy it.
Every time, look, the Tulsa massacre, within about 5 years, that whole area was rebuilt. It was not even called the Black Wall Street until after it was rebuilt. And it was rebuilt, by the way, by...
Well, yeah, but that's still a significant hit, no? To the black community in a way that's not just magically sustained. Just because the area might be rebuilt after 5 years doesn't mean that the economic infrastructure comes back. You know, and maybe I'm just a little uneducated about that specific situation, but it seems like a little bit of a downplay of that.
Black people without one dime of government money.
Yeah, but who destroyed it to begin with?
It was racists who destroyed it. No question about it. We've had race riots, but so have Japanese.
So you do agree that there's racism? I'm just so confused.
You know, I never even came close to saying. I never came close to saying there was no racism.
You just said you don't think it's systemic racism.
Not anymore. Obviously, there was. We had something called slavery. We had something called Jim Crow.
That destroyed black. Hold on, sir. That was the system that destroyed Black Wall Street. It's the same system right now that's not even wanting to pay those same living descendants, because I know your position on reparations, but those same living descendants of Black Wall Street.
Okay.
And then you go on to say that the system, the quote unquote system, is also trying to destroy President Trump. So I'm just so confused on, do you believe that the system can destroy or not? You pick and choose, sir, and that's what's so confusing to me. You just said it wasn't racism. Now it is racism. When it was time to build it back, there was no racism.
I said it wasn't systemic racism. Let's talk about.
It's crazy. She's just, this is the problem. No one. She's on here, you know, she's on here for like a clip, you know what I mean? She's on here to be viral. She's not on there to like listen to the conversation. Again, I probably agree with her more than Larry Elder, but you see how just like rude and disrespectful she's being, and she's just yelling and not really letting him talk and misrepresenting his arguments over and over again. I mean, it just doesn't work out. She just comes off as just so not great, dude. No.
Can I just make this point, Charlamagne, please? Let's take Chinese Americans. Chinese Americans were the first ethnic group to be excluded with an Immigration Act in the late 1800s.
Okay.
They had riots against Chinese in L.A., in San Francisco. There were laws that prevented Chinese Americans from participating in the laundry business. I'm in California. California, of course, rounded up Japanese Americans during World War II. There were laws that prevented Japanese Americans from owning farmland. The average Japanese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. The average Chinese...
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the problems here with this overall conversation, or this overall point, is that when it comes to Chinese people, and it comes to, like, okay, when it comes to a lot of different people, but there's a thing called like a model minority, and so for the most part, America tries to take like the people who are the richest from other countries. If you're rich in China, you have an easier time getting into America than other non-rich Chinese people, and I think that those end up skewing the statistics. My understanding is the disparity between Chinese or Asian Americans in general, but Chinese Americans between rich and poor is greater than any other group. So the point there is that there are some really poor people, Chinese people, and then there are some really rich Chinese people that skew the data to make it seem like overall they're doing better, which they might be, but my understanding is that rich Chinese people are doing so well that it skews the data to make it seem like they're doing better than Americans on average. So
the American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. How does that happen? It happens because of a strong belief in family. It is rare for a Chinese American or a Japanese American kid to have a child outside of wedlock.
And by the way, this is also a good point. Like, yeah, the cultural thing is a very big positive, though.
Strong belief in education and a strong belief in entrepreneurship. These are the kinds of qualities that make people successful.
You can't blame everything on having a fatherless family, right?
Yeah, okay. So Asians in the United States have the greatest wealth gap of any ethnic group, according to 2018 report by the Pew Research Center. Those in the top 10% of income distribution earn almost 11 times as much as those at the bottom, right? So this is the biggest that I think is a factor here.
I didn't say blaming everything.
I know, but that's what you're saying. You're saying a strong community. But
no, you said that's what I just said. I didn't say that.
I think a big part of it is community, absolutely. But like, where does that community come from? Larry Elder knows that it's nothing to do with black people as like a people. There's nothing genetic holding black people back. So there's a cultural thing. It's like, okay, so then where does the culture come from? Some of the culture will come from like a history of systemic racism, beating down a community, over policing, like active racism, denying jobs, denying opportunities. And it turns out like police officers is being violent towards the black people for no reason historically. And even if those things aren't happening now, there is still like a historical trauma, you could call it, in some black communities that make people angry and resentful and not want to trust the institutions or trust police. We saw that like black Americans were some of the disproportionately largest groups that didn't trust the COVID vaccine. And why would you blame them, considering considering they've been treated like shit by the government, you know. So there's a lot of different factors there. I think like dealing with the fatherhood issue is a huge positive in any community, really. But I mean, you can't really do anything about it unless you go as far, unless you're going to make it so you can't get divorced. It's going to be education and money, because that's going to keep people together, because they're going to have money's a huge stressor, and education teaches people to make better decisions, right? And so it's going to be more of those than anything else. So just saying black fathers is like, they should engage and be like, okay, so what are you going to do about the lack of black fatherhood? You know, you're just going to keep saying black fathers over and over again, or is there kind of a solution that you have?
The Asian community, it's easy for them to get loans for entrepreneurships. It's easy for them to get loans for houses. You look at our community. Okay. If you really want to talk about our community, right? You look at the schools in our community. Some of our schools are the worst, right? Would you agree with that? Yes or no?
Absolutely. Which is why one of the reasons I'm running for president is for school choice.
Also, would you say that?
Yes, but that's one of the problems. Is like school choice is dog shit. And so this is the point that you want to push Larry Elder on. No, that's why I'm running for school choice. School choice is terrible. School choice is a bad idea. School choice will never work. The reason why school choice doesn't work is school choice is very simple. You choose your school. Why does this not work? Let's say do I have to maybe I should pull out the paint. It's going to be kind of hard though. But let's say you have 3 different schools, right? School A, great results in people getting out of school A. School B, mediocre results. School C, dog shit results. Naturally, what you're going to do is go, okay, school A is the best school. I want my kids to go to school A. Everybody from school C now goes to school A. Because they're there, classroom sizes diminish, right? Or classroom sizes explode, right? There's not going to necessarily be enough teachers. There's not necessarily going to be enough room in the classrooms. You're going to see worse and worse results. Additionally, now you have to get the people from school C that might be 20 or 30 miles from school A to there, which means you have to spend more money on buses because it's going to be longer rides. And now you have a completely vacant building that does absolutely nothing. It's a nice concept. In practice, it's a dog shit idea. You're better off investing more money into better schools or putting more money into those worse off schools. It just makes more sense. Additionally, rich people, let's be real, rich people whose kids go to school A, they're not going to want poor people's kids going there. That's why people will move there. And you might say that sounds shitty, but like that's the reality of the situation. People don't want kids that are like might be be problematic from school C, because a lot of people end up growing up in areas that they might have more or different issues. And I'm not even necessarily saying that they're black. It could be any race. And they're not going to want to have their kids in that school, and they're just going to pull them out of the school. They're going to leave the area. There's going to be less funding for the school. The school's going to go to shit. The school choice is not a good idea. It's a nice concept, but like I find it hard to believe people think that school choice is actually something that would ever work. It feels like just kind of like I don't know. It's lazy. You need to put more money into the schools. It's more cost effective to put more money into the schools too. So I don't really understand why conservatives are more for school choice than for empowering the schools that exist in a particular area in the first place. So
in our community, it's also in our communities heavy food deserts. There's nothing but fast food.
But like, see, they're not. They push them on the food. Push them on the food point. Push them on the school choice. This is a problem. It's like they're so and I think that's a lot. You have to be a terminally online fucking goober like myself to be like super into all this shit and like to know some of the talking points against some of this stuff. But you want to push them back on some of this stuff, because not pushing them back on that is silly. He just gets to say school choice, and now people might go, well, that sounds like a good idea, because it sounds like a great idea until you start investigating it. But if you're not going to push back on what that idea is, then like it's ineffective. So
places that are just killing and destroying that. Would you say that's true?
Systemic too,
Boy.
Would you say that's true? I'm just asking a question.
You said a number of things. I just addressed one of them about loans. Mm-hmm. In 1965, Barack Obama, who was in private practice, joined a bunch of other lawyers to file a class action lawsuit against Citicorp, which is headquartered here in New York. 186 black people were applying for loans for mortgages and didn't get them. And they accused Citicorp of engaging in racism. Mm-hmm. Citicorp said, no, it's not racism. You have poor credit scores, and we want to make sure we get our money back. Obama joined a bunch of other lawyers, and they sued Citicorp in a class action lawsuit. And Citicorp.
Yeah, and I think that Bush ended up expanding poor people's ability to get like loans for houses, and it ended up like destroying the communities too. That's what like led to the Great Recession, like 2008 crash. It's a little over my head exactly the specifics, but that's my understanding was one of the issues was they were giving people loans for nothing, that they weren't monitoring them as well. But
said, okay, to hell with it. Gave them all loans, and They followed them all up. Daily Caller did a few years later. Almost all of them lost their homes. Several of them filed for bankruptcy. One of them even said, you know, when you don't qualify for a loan, maybe we shouldn't get a loan. Well, duh. It wasn't true that black people were not getting loans. Plus, there are all sorts of black-owned community banks around the country, and it turns out the turn-down rate when you apply for a loan at a community bank was even higher because they had less capital and they couldn't afford to loan money to risky people. It is just not the case that the reason for the plight of the black community is because people were not lending money to them. It's just not true.
Well, I mean, that is going to be a factor. I don't know if it happened back in whatever time period he's talking about. It definitely did happen historically. You know, but again, okay.
That's not true. But hold on 1 second, Charlamagne. But so
what's not true?
You bring about facts of 1965, right? Let's talk 2023, right?
I said 1995.
1995. We'll talk 2023, right? My son will be successful in real estate and successful in buying a house. You know why? Because his father owns a house. Because his father owns a house, right? But my father
because of you and the drive you put into
did not own houses.
Because of you and the drive you put into it.
We're not going to have a conversation.
You're not even appreciating what you've done to your son.
I'm just asking you a question. I just let you speak.
All right. Okay.
Larry Elder's acting like that girl now. Yeah, I want to hear what he has to say.
Have a conversation.
All right.
When we talk about it, right, it's harder for our community to get loans, right? And not just because of poor credit scores, it's because of where the areas are. You talked about the Asian community. A lot of the Asian community have their own banks and they're able to process and get their own banks. There's not too many African American branches that are able to give out money. So that's one. Then let's talk about getting grants for schools. They're not even giving grants for schools at the rate that they're giving grants for white people. And let's talk about when they talk about entrepreneurship.
I feel like that's not true. Grants for schools by race. Again, a lot of this boils down to money and expanding money in different communities more than anything else. So
they are giving so much money to these white and Asian kids and Asian people doing it, and a 1,000 times less than our community. Would you agree to any of that?
No, I don't. I don't agree with virtually any of what you just now said. The turn down rate for a white applicant for a mortgage is higher than the turn down rate for a Japanese or Chinese applicant for a mortgage. Now, are you telling me that banks are discriminating against white and in favor of Asian Americans? It's because their credit scores are better. They often live below their means. They save more, even when they're making the same amount of money than black people do. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. Period. End of statement. Even the head of Urban League, a black man once said that. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. End of statement.
Sir,
yes.
Let's just when you were talking about crime, you weren't prepared to talk about disproportion. You talked about how it was more black people that was doing it, and then you talked about how we're the smaller, other population.
No, he was prepared to talk about proportionality. His conversation was that proportionately, white people white people were less mass shootings than black people proportionally. Right now, I looked at the statistics saying that white and black people were disproportionately causing more crime proportionate to their race in general, for mass shootings specifically. But he was prepared to talk about the proportionality, so I don't know what you're talking about.
The same applies also to the loans. It's more white people than it is black people. You seem to pick and choose.
I'm talking about
but you don't talk about raw numbers. You talk about proportionality. Like if you never talk about the raw numbers at all. Right, like that's the reality. There's 4 times more white people in America than black people. So obviously, white people are going to always do more things than black people. They're always going to cause more crime. They're always going to do X, Y, and Z because there's just more of them. That's why you talk about these things from like a proportionality perspective. That's why like black people are proportionately like less, more poor. Well, it's a proportionality conversation. I don't know if it works in that specific situation I just said, but you understand my point. He was prepared is the point.
The rate. I'm talking about the rate.
Whatever it is. The bottom line is it's more white people than it is black people. And so if more black people are not getting loans disproportionately, it seems you'd only want to apply the disproportion to the conversation when it benefits your talking point.
I'm not sure you understood.
Which is why they said.
I'm not sure you understood. I'm not sure you understood my point. That's why I mentioned in 1995 when 186 black people who were not getting loans filed a class action lawsuit claiming that they were denied the loan because of racism. Citicorp said, okay, here are your loans. The reason I wasn't giving you the loans is because we're afraid you weren't going to be able to pay them back.
I'm not talking about
Fast forward, they weren't able to pay them back, which proves the Citicorp point.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about
I know you're not, because inconvenient.
I'm talking about your response to Envy when you said more white people get approved for loans.
Since you like numbers, Washington Post said black Americans have the highest denial rates for purchase and refinance of loans, according to Home Mortgage Disclosures Act.
Because of their credit score.
And all credit scores are the same. 15% of Hispanic loan applicants were denied, compared with about 11% of white and 10% of Asian applicants with same credit scores. And that's Washington Post, since you love numbers so much, and I know you do love numbers. That's coming from the Washington Post. That's
okay, interesting.
2023, not 1995.
I can show you a study that says the opposite.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah. Well, then show me the study. I mean, that... You can't just say you show me the study that says the opposite. I mean, they seem to have found if that is true, that even if the credit score is the exact same, there's a higher denial rate for black or Hispanic people than white people. Like that would be an example of systemic racism. Now, you could probably argue that the banks in those areas might not be as financially sound, so they can't make as many risky investments, because that might be true too. I don't really know, but just to say like, no, that's not true. I have a statistic. Well, show it to me. What are you referencing?
Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and I'm pretty sure everybody who just caught a RICO with him in Georgia, they all had fathers, and they still ended up in jail. How did that happen?
Well, I guess that's an interesting point. I don't think it's like an end-all, be-all perspective. But okay, they're. I mean, let's be real. Donald Trump's basically poor. He only had a small loan of $1 million to help him out when he first started. So
nobody said nobody said
hey,
if
what's
you
up?
have
You're
a
a
father,
huge
you
fan.
won't
Thank
go
you.
to jail. Nobody said if you didn't have a father, you were going to jail. My father never.
Yeah, the point is that overall, if you have like a more stable household, you're going to do better in life. That's the point.
What you did say, Mr. Elder. I'm sorry, respectfully.
May I answer his question?
Guess what you did say.
May I answer his question?
Let him finish his statement, Ted.
Okay.
My father never knew his biological father. He got thrown out of the house when he was 13 years old. 8th grade dropout, Jim Crow South, Athens, Georgia. Fast forward, my dad cleaned toilets, 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets when I was growing up. Went to night school to get his GED, and then after that, he went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. Age of 47, my dad saved his nickels and dimes from his job, starts a small restaurant near downtown LA. Fast forward, he retired.
There's this constant theme of like he's referencing like saving your money, living under your your means and whatnot, and that's also very important as well. You should be living under your means. You should be saving your money, and not doing that means that you have less money. Basically, I know it sounds silly, but it's effectively the truth. You know, if you make $50,000 a year, but you were able to save $5,000 a year, you're doing better than somebody who makes $55,000 a year. That's only saving $2,000 a year if you really think about it, because you live in better means. I mean, how much does like a Funko Pops or whatever I have behind me actually mean when it comes to being able to be prepared for some kind of a major issue, like your car breaks down? You know, you can't really liquidate your fucking Funko Pops instantly and go, oh, I gotta pay for my car now. So like that's a big part of it too, is you do want to live underneath your means.
In his 80s, he owned that restaurant. He owned property next door, plus the house that's still in our family. Not too shabby for somebody who did not know his biological father. It's not a death sentence. You still have choices. It's just much more difficult to raise a child on your own. Even Tupac Shakur said, "I know for a fact." Tupac, excuse me. I know.
Damn. that's not gonna go over well for him. Tupac Shakur.
For a fact, had I had a father, I would have been more confident. I would have been more disciplined. End of quote.
Well, how did all those white men end up in jail when they still had fathers? The Trumps and the Giuliani. I'm just asking the question. How did they end up in jail?
Because that's just like a silly thing. We're talking general, not specific. People still get in trouble if they have dads. It's just like they're less likely to have problems if they have both their parents in a household. It's just a silly point.
Because some people commit crimes.
No, sir. Stop.
Oh
my apologies for interrupting you.
I don't know how they're managing to lose this conversation with our elder.
Earlier, I just couldn't stomach the answer that I knew you were going to say.
Couldn't stomach the answer?
Yeah, I couldn't stomach, because your actual answer to Trump being what was happening to him with the indictments, you actually said that the system was doing it. You said there was a 2-tier system. This is your words.
Oh,
there was a 2-tier system. So when it came to Trump,
so the 2-tier cope coming to for when it comes down to him, because Trump, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Trump, I mean, I just don't know what to tell you. Trump was doing illegal things. And he should be held accountable for that. And there's this, like, the reality is he's done an excellent job of stewing a conspiracy theory into people because he has no actual like evidence of his, of his non-guilt. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? He incited a riot. He was like taking home classified documents and shit. Like, what the fuck do you want me to tell you, man? It's just what it is.
All of a sudden, you now believe in this systematic thing that's happening to Trump. But then when it happens
but it's
to
not.
black people,
But it's not about race. It's not about
I didn't
race.
ask you that. I asked you. Remember, I made it easy for you, and I took race out of it. Remember, I said I'm just talking about the system. I'm just talking about the system.
If you want to ask me whether I believe Donald Trump is being treated the same way as Joe Biden and is being treated the same way as Hillary Clinton, all these people are white. All these people are white. There's a double standard.
Well,
Mr. Elder, you didn't hear my question.
You said that
you didn't hear my question.
You said some people commit crimes, so you do believe that Trump, Giuliani, them, they committed a crime.
I don't know.
But you just said some people commit crimes.
I said some people committed a crime. I didn't say Donald Trump committed a crime. If you ask me specifically whether I believe Donald Trump committed a crime, I don't.
Specifically about those people and why they ended up in jail. They all got fathers.
Well, Donald Trump's not in jail.
Oh, he got indicted.
Yeah, he got indicted. That's a far cry from being in jail.
Well, why did he get indicted?
Well, he got arrested, is what I'm saying.
He's
going to get arrested.
He got indicted, in my opinion, because the DOJ has a double standard. They let Hillary pass, for example. She clearly violated the Espionage Act by having an unsecured server in her basement. She paid for the Steele dossier. She destroyed 30,000 emails that were under subpoena, and she got a wrist slap. And Donald Trump is now being indicted, I think, for the 4th time. It's unfair.
Right.
I mean, we had this whole situation where... I mean, like, what was it? After the Russian probe that they did when Trump first got elected, like 14 people around him ended up getting fucking like going to jail or getting. I think that 14 people around him went to jail. I mean, it's not like Donald Trump is completely guilt free. He's constantly fucking up. He's constantly making mistakes. I don't know what to tell you.
Black people been telling y'all how corrupt the FBI is for a long time.
And the FBI has been corrupt. There was COINTEL, the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover also wiretapped MLK under Robert Kennedy, a Democrat Attorney General, Malcolm X, lots of things. Right. And I find it interesting how the same people who criticize the FBI historically are now defending the FBI because they're going after Donald Trump.
Oh, we're not defending FBI.
I didn't say you were. I said some of the same people.
Okay.
We're just looking and saying, damn, finally.
What's your thoughts with Florida? And you see that they're trying to take our history out of these history books and not trying to teach our history. What's your thoughts?
I find it interesting that the Democrats are the ones complaining about Florida. This is a party of slavery, party of Jim Crow.
Oh yeah, Larry Elder's just he's an idiot. I don't know what to tell you. Like it's just a bad argument when someone's like, hey, listen, there's a problem in Florida where they're having bad conversations about like race. For instance, they're trying to teach that slavery was good. And that's what it is. You can cope and seethe about it, but when they're trying to frame it nicely by saying, no, they're trying to teach that there were some things that black slaves developed, some skills that they got out of being slaves. There might be a level of truth to that, but the reality is it's trying to recontextualize slavery as not being so bad. And you might say, that's not true. Okay. Replace black slaves with child sex traffickers, like children that were sex trafficked. All of a sudden, you're not going to run defense for it. There might be some skills, right? Manosphere probably would love to date a person who used to be a child that was sex trafficked. They learn to be submissive and prioritize male pleasure over their own agency and their own autonomy and personhood. That's not a skill that you learn, but you could play that framing bullshit game. It's disgusting what I just said, but it's the same thing as it's disgusting when it comes to slavery. These skills that were learned were them being oppressed and then coping, and like, oh, there were some things that they might have learned. What are you talking about? Like, it's just a dumb thing to say that people develop skills from being enslaved. Right, and that's part of what Florida's trying to do, is they're trying to run defense on slavery. That's really all it is, to downplaying how bad it was. And to sit here and hear like, oh, Florida's doing some dumb shit and go, well, Democrats the party of slavery. The reality is that the party of slavery flew the Confederate flag, and Republicans are flying their Confederate flag. So the conservatives are the conservatives of slavery, or the party of slavery, but who cares? It's a non-argument. It's irrelevant. There's no reason to even have the conversation about it. It's just stupid. It's a virtue signal. Like Larry knows that he's wrong on this point. And he's going to instantly shift to this dumb argument about it.
The party of the KKK, the party of the Southern Manifesto, the party of.
There's not a single Democratic KKK member now. I don't know what to tell you. So what you're saying is just it's just not true. So.
Of Dred Scott. The party that I said earlier destroyed the nuclear intact family, and the party that is opposing school choice. And now they want to lecture
school choice is dog shit. So I don't know what to tell you.
Florida on making sure the proper history of slavery is taught. I don't know anybody who's defending slavery. Anybody. Not Ron DeSantis. He's not defending.
People benefited from slavery.
Actually, you're talking about one line. You're talking about one line in about 127 pages of the study. And it is a line that was repeated almost verbatim in the associated in the advanced placement African American course that the DeSantis administration refused to use because of all the sexual stuff that was in it. It's basically the same thing that was in the advanced placement African American courses, and now because it's in that, all of a sudden the governor is accused of somehow defending slavery. He's not doing anything of the sort.
What did you think about that?
Well, sir, you were actually one that defended slavery. In your comments, you said that, like it or not, slavery was legal in response to reparations. So it's you that was defending slavery, correct?
That's a weird thing to say. I would personally say that I don't think reparations are the best way to operate, because not all black people need reparations, and they're like, you're better off focusing on poor people. So maybe they should have got it back then, but now it is what it is. But to say that was just a weird thing. Just the weird things. Like it or not, slavery was legal. Oh, okay. But that doesn't mean anything. That's weird.
Defending it and saying that it's illegal are two very different things. Slavery, unfortunately.
That was your response. That was your response into if reparations should happen. So your response to that was, like it or not, slavery was legal, and one would think that was a defense on those who.
Well, you would think it was a defense, but it is not a defense. Unfortunately, slavery has been part and parcel of human history from the very beginning. Asians enslaved Asians, whites enslaved whites, blacks enslaved blacks, Native Americans enslaved Native Americans.
Sure, that's absolutely true. And we enslaved people. It doesn't matter what color they are, but it was black people, but people in America. And like, you should rectify that. And once black people became non-slaves, they probably should have got some kind of reparation. But instead, the white slave owners got reparations instead because they had to give up their slaves. That's my understanding. Could be a little wrong about that last part, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
This is a culture, the Western civilization, that had a revulsion against it. We had a civil war against it. And we ought to applaud ourselves for doing something about this. This is a flawed country. It's moving forward. It's becoming more perfect all the time. Today, if you are born and raised in America, if you finish high school, presumably one where you can read, write, and compute at grade level, which is why I support school choice. Don't have a kid before you're 20. Get married first.
Bro, they need to push back on school choice. It's so easy. Oh my God. It's fucking crazy with the school choice dog shit.
Keep a job, don't quit it until you get another job, and avoid the criminal justice system, you will not be poor. If you don't follow that formula, there's a good chance you will be.
You know, the first GOP debate is coming up, and you didn't qualify, and I saw you write.
Well, you didn't say, I've not yet not qualified. It's not until August 21.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw you write in the op-ed that the Republican National Committee has rigged the rules of the game by instituting a set of criteria that is so onerous. What is it? Onerous.
Onerous.
And
I mispronounced Tupac, so you mispronounced onerous. So we're even.
You are really petty, Mr.
And he said, and poorly designed that only establishment and billionaire candidates are guaranteed to be on stage. Explain to us why that system hurts people.
Well, I ran for governor of California. I got 3.5 million votes. It seems to me that made me credible. The RNC is requiring us to have 1% or 40,000 individual donors. In 2020, the DNC required you to have 1% or a certain number of donors for reasons that I don't quite understand. The RNC is requiring you to...
I don't know why you need donors as a number. I mean, if you have the percentage of the vote.
Have both of them. One of the candidates in this race is a multimillionaire. He's offered a $20 gift certificate if you give $1. Another one is offering a free, air quotes, country western...
That should be illegal. Wait, so if you donate $1, he gives a gift certificate to somebody? That should be illegal. That's paying for a vote. What the fuck? That's insane. What? Wait, that should be fucking illegal as hell. 2-pack. $20 gift for voting. Okay. What the fuck? Or maybe he's saying you get a $20 gift certificate. Okay. GOP presidential candidate offers $20 gift cards for $1 donations. He's promising $20 gift cards to 50,000 people who donated $1 to his campaign. Yeah, that should be illegal, no? What the fuck?
If you give $1. Another one is giving you a commission if you are a prospective donor to go out and get other prospective donors. It seems to me that corrupts the whole process. I'm doing it the old-fashioned way, Charlamagne. I'm asking people to support me and go to my website, LarryElder.com, and give me at least $1. If I get $1 from 40,000 individuals, I will be up on that stage in Milwaukee on August 23. And when I get up there, game on, hold my beer.
So why is this system, is this system holding you back? Would you say it's a system holding you back?
I would say it's unfair. It seems to me this early, the voters ought to decide this. I mean, in 2016, there were 17 or 18 Republican candidates. Now there's 13. Somehow, some way, our republic survived, and we could survive with 13 candidates. I don't know why they have all this rule to eliminate certain people at this point.
But rather than... Those systems can hold you back no matter how hard you work, right?
Yeah, I get it. He's trying to say that this is like a form of systemic oppression, possibly. Maybe. I mean, it wouldn't be targeting black people. It would be targeting poor people. But either way, like, sure. But it's just like, he's just beating a dead horse. Push him on school choice. It's such a bad fucking idea. Holy shit.
I'm going to say, but rather than whine about it, my goal is to get on as many shows as I can, like yours, urge people to go to LarryElder.com, give at least $1, even if you want somebody else. Don't you think it's wise for us to talk about the epidemic of fatherlessness, the lie that America remains systemically racist, and the need for school choice? 13 public high schools in Baltimore, 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. Are you kidding me? 53 public high schools in Chicago, 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party is opposed to school choice, while the party elites, where there's...
Because it's dog shit. It's a shitty thing. I mean, just like Republican Party is opposed to like early access or early education programs or universal preschool, which is infinitely better than fucking school choice, because it actually makes sense. Get all kids to preschool is better than like let's completely like overcrowd some schools and not overcrowd other schools. It's just not a good idea. There's like just put more money into the schools and try to operate from that capacity.
Barack Obama or Gavin Newsom or...
I think a UBI would fix all these problems though. You know, get more money into the hands of people, taxpayers. It could push more money around. You know, I like UBI. It's better. I think it helps change the welfare system. That does keep people on it in like a dependent way with so conditionally that it's hard to get off of it. This is unconditional money, so it doesn't decentivize you from working. Puts tons, like millions of dollars into communities so they have more money to spend. It makes it so that you don't need to drastically increase the minimum wage for people to actually be able to, you know, survive. It means that small business owners don't have to pay people as much, and there's a better opportunity for small business owners. More money going to the communities, more tax money, more tax dollars, which means that you'll have more money that's being invested into schools potentially, because you'll have more like wealth in that capacity. It gives it doesn't decentivize. It actually it incentivizes multiple people, like two parents in a household, because that's two UBIs in a household. It allows you to make it so that one of the parents don't necessarily have to work, that they can stay home and help raise the kid. It helps you with like your healthcare costs, helps you with like 1,000 different things. I really do believe in like some kind of a UBI. I think that there's so many positives. I know that there's probably negatives to discuss as well. Sure, we could debate that, but I like it so much when it comes down to it.
Or Joe Biden have their own kids in private school. It is wrong, and we need to talk about that.
Larry Elder, why would somebody from our community vote for you, or why should they vote for you? Why should a black person vote for you?
Because I'm telling the truth, and the truth oftentimes is unpleasant. It's not pleasant for me to be called the black face of white supremacy, as the LA Times did. It's not pleasant for me to be accused of being anti-black, as Tavis Smiley once called me, because I don't support reparations. By the way, Barack Obama never supported reparations. Nobody called him anti-black. We need to talk about what's going on.
Well, I mean, I've heard Barack Obama has talked about systemic racism as an issue, though. So I don't think it's just the reparations argument there.
It's the breakdown of the family, and most of
it probably has a little more to do with the fact that you're talking about you're running defense for racist conservatives, specifically with the point that, like, for no unprompted, like, no reason bringing up that the Democratic Party is the party of slavery when, like, those people vote Republican now. All right, the Confederate flag are the individual. People fly that Confederate flag. Those are the people. Those are the racists, right? Let's be absolutely real. Those are the racist individuals that fly that flag for the most part. You know, maybe some of it's Southern culture, but those people who honor, the Confederacy, those are the sore losers that can't take a fucking L, right? And those were the racists that wanted slavery to stay a thing. So, yeah, now they're Republican. So I'm pretty sure the Democratic Party really isn't the party of slavery. Things have clearly shifted. So
the things we complain about downstream, whether it's crime or whether it's bad schools, the genesis is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and we don't talk enough about it.
Do you agree that our community is hit harder with a lot of things that you just said, whether it is racism, whether it is getting loans, whether it is getting entrepreneurship, whether it is education, whether it is all those things? You do understand that and agree with that, right?
I do, but much of it is either self-inflicted or because of policies that we have supported, Democrats that we have supported. I wrote a book it's coming out in October. It's called As Goes California, My Mission to Rescue the Golden State and Save the Nation. It's about the one-party rule in California. California has supermajorities of Democrats in the Senate and in the House. And as a result, our schools...
Well, it's the same thing with other states, right? No? There aren't a lot of states like have a supermajority because people like vote one direction.
Schools are near the bottom. People are leaving California for the very first time. We have the highest state income tax in the country. The average price of a home in California costs 175% above the national average, all because of these left-wing policies that are hurting the very people, black and brown people living in the inner city, that people on the left claim that they care about.
You think slavery was
maybe. I mean, it's probably a little more complicated than that, but sure.
Self-inflicted? Or do you think Jim Crow segregation was self-inflicted? Or do you think,
slavery was self-inflicted? Of course, it wasn't self-inflicted, but there are a lot of people have bloody hands in slavery. Mm-hmm. For example, slavery could not have existed had it not been for African chieftains who were selling black slaves captured in battle or captured through raids and selling them to European and Arab slavers. It could not have existed without that. So everybody has dirty hands here. That's why reparations is such a foolish thing.
That doesn't disprove reparations. Again, I'm not for reparations because I simply don't think that it's the best way to go. Will Smith doesn't need reparation money just because he's black. He's doing fine. I think we'd be better off spending it on like poor people who are, there's different types of oppressions. I would say that it's an oppression if you grow up in like a family that's of drug addicts and you become a drug addict. You know what I mean? So that's my biggest argument against reparations. But the fact that like there were black people involved in selling slaves doesn't mean that America still shouldn't need to repair or to try to take steps to repair the problem. It's an American problem, right? So America should do that in general. But just the fact that like black people also had a hand in there doesn't mean that you'd be like, oh well, that's my argument against system or some kind of reparations. I think that's like silly.
Going to get reparations from the 5% or so of white people that have some sort of generational connection to slavery, and that's all there is, then you need to go back to Africa.
That's a good argument.
And get money from African countries that were involved in the slave trade and in the Arab slave trade. And by the way, the Arab slave trade was even worse than the European slave trade. 90% rate of attrition, often making men and women walk on barefoot across the Sahara, and the men were castrated. Only about
So if they go after the money from the other countries, then would you agree that it would be okay to go after the money from America? Is that your problem?
I think the point he was making is that like you should get the money from people in Africa because they sold the slaves. I think that's the argument there.
You're going to stop with this. Everybody has a grievance. I'm answering your question.
I mean, you could argue that there was reparations for Jewish people after World War II. That Germany, I think, played it to Israel and like helped to relocate people. My understanding. So, okay.
There'll be no end to this because slavery has been part of human history from the very beginning.
Okay, now I've let you talk, Sir, I've let you talk, and every time I talk, you begin to talk, and then you say, "Let you finish." So I asked you a very simple question. You said, "If you're going to go after it in America, go after it in Africa." So we all agree to go after it in Africa. Will you then agree?
He wasn't saying go after it. I'm pretty sure what he was saying is that you should get the money from Africa since they sold it.
You go after it in America. Is this a simple question?
No,
Yes or no?
No, I won't, because it's a waste of time. We ought to be spending our time on education.
Next question.
Okay. You told me that I cut you off. Then I tried to answer your question. You won't let me finish.
Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you. It's a waste of time. We ought to be talking about working hard, investing in ourselves. Right now, as we speak, there are Haitians in Haiti lining up for a lottery to come into this country. Why? Because it is the land of the free and the home of the brave. You can go from nothing to something fast.
The Whopper. Also, Haitian people do not like Black Americans. I remember, I always tell this story. There was this Haitian woman who I called black once at my mom's job, and she got really mad at me and wanted to hit me. Because they don't there's a lot of I guess you'd call that colorism in the Black community as well. Non-native Black people are not big fans of Black people. Unfortunately, there's another colorism issue there as well.
In America than any other country in all of human history. We ought to be talking about that. Let me just one more point. 1997, Time Magazine and CNN hooked up together to do a poll on what Black teenagers and white teenagers felt about racism. Mm-hmm. And both of them were asked, is racism a major problem in America? Both of them said yes. But then Time and CNN asked this question of the Black teenagers. Is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? This is 1997. 89% of them said small problem or no problem in my own daily life. In fact, twice as many blacks said 97 teenagers. Is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? This is 1997. 89% of them said small problem or no problem in my own daily life. In fact, twice as many blacks said failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism.
Twice. Okay, that was interesting. I mean, you could just argue that these are teenagers and they don't necessarily know what the fuck they're talking about. But okay.
1997. Look it up.
2023 though.
Well, the argument would be that racism is not as bad now than it was in 1997. What the fuck? I'm getting completely stun-locked. But okay. Okay.
I think America's more racist now after the election and re-election of Barack Obama than it was in 1997?
Yes, because of the election of MAGA, Donald Trump, 100%. Yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, how is it, Charlemagne, that Donald Trump got 8% of the black vote in 2016? He got 12% in 2020, a 50% increase. He got 20% of the black male vote in 2020. If MAGA is racist, how do you explain that Donald Trump substantially increased the percentage of black votes the Republican Party got?
Sometimes people make.
So why are you running against Trump then, Mr. Elder?
Yes,
I'm not running against him. I'm running against Biden-Harris. Any one of the Republican nominees we have would be better than what we have right now. I'm not running against him. I'm running to put forth the issues I just now mentioned that I've been talking about for the last few minutes.
I want to ask you about that. After 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges, don't you think it would behoove the Republican Party to move on from Donald Trump?
I think
it's interesting. So I would argue that one of the reasons why Donald Trump got a lot of black votes in 2024 or whatever, 2020, I don't know why I said 24, is probably because they could vote from home and more people had more access and availability to actually be able to vote. That doesn't mean that doesn't make Donald Trump racist or whatever. That's not the point that I'm making. The point I'm making is that there was a greater ability for black people to vote because we did mail-in ballots. And, that's one of the things that's always contested is that only happens because of the mail-in ballots.
That the voters in the primary will make that decision.
But I think it was an increase in black men and not necessarily all black people. But
what do you think, though?
I have no problem with that Donald Trump did an extraordinary job as president, especially for black people. Best economy ever. He did something about the borders.
No. So first of all, best economy ever is just a dumb thing to say. I need to be very real. And this is something, and it blows my mind here. Okay, I need people to understand something. Our GDP rose to, I think, 4.2 at its highest. That's really good. But if I asked you a very simple question, if you went to the bank right now and you took out a $10,000 loan, would you consider that $10,000 in income? You'd probably say no, because you're not a fucking moron. The reality is that the Trump tax cuts inflated drastically our annual federal deficit. Not our debt, our deficit. There's a difference. Debt is the total amount of money that we owe. The deficit is the amount of money over what we take in that we're paying. Drastically increased it from when he inherited the office, $650 billion per year to $1 trillion before COVID. Okay? The economy was not sustainable, right? It just wasn't. Every person, every economist said so. All he did was go to the bank and take out a loan, basically, to put more money in people's pockets. And it was mostly rich people. So the economy might have been better, completely unsustainable. I don't consider that the economy being better, considering there was a zero sustainability. So to say that he did great in the economy is just a dumb thing to say. It just is. I don't know what else to tell you. The last, I don't know, like the last 20 or 30 years, Republicans have increased the amount of money that we're spending rather than decreasing it. He drastically increased the amount of money for the military for what? Like when, we can give $80 billion more to the military, but we can't give $1 billion for, Head Start programs for kids to go to fucking preschool. He did not do a good job with that. When it came to the border, he didn't get the border up. I think Biden has invested more. My understanding, Biden has invested more money, I think, into the border security than Trump. I think he even got Mexico to agree to pay for part of like a wall. Biden, so which is the funny part. Yeah, so the Mexican president agreed to spend $1.5 billion over the next 2 years to improve smart border technology in his meetings with President Joe Biden. So, first of all, the wall was never a good idea. It was more expensive than Donald Trump had stated. He undersold it drastically, and it was bad for the environment as well. Like there's like different, ecological issues. But people from the start were talking about how there would be better to invest in technology that would help to take care of this problem. Smart border technology, like sensors and whatnot, different cameras, different things like that, rather than a physical border wall, which is much less expensive and easier to maintain. Right. And Biden actually got that. He got it. And he got Mexico to say that they're going to pay for a $1.5 billion worth of it. And Trump did so well on the border. And he failed at the border. He didn't really get shit implemented. Okay. In fact, he ended up separating a ton of fucking families, which is, I would consider a failure. But either way, like, he didn't do anything for the border in any real capacity. Biden has been doing more for the border security than fucking Trump, but we don't talk about that. So he's getting him to pay for the wall, baby. How funny is that? But I guess Republicans don't give a fuck about that.
The people that are most hurt because of porous borders are black people living in the inner city, because most of the illegal aliens have little or no education.
What the fuck are you talking about? How are black people in the inner city have the biggest issue with borders? It doesn't even make sense. What?
End up living in the inner city. They compete against black people with high school or less for jobs.
So the problem here is, oh my god, my brain is gonna explode. This is the fucking funniest thing that he said, and they can catch him so easy. Listen to this again.
He did something about the borders.
Oh,
the people that are most hurt because of porous borders are black people living in the inner city, because most of the illegal aliens have little or no education. They end up living in the inner city. They compete against black people with high school or less for jobs. There are about 1 million fewer black people.
So first and foremost, that's a problem with the business owners hiring illegal aliens or illegal immigrants. Second of all, the illegal people from the inner cities, they're not the ones coming across the fucking border. They're the people that are coming in legally, and then they're overstaying their visas. So the border wouldn't even help black people on this. What are you talking about in these inner cities? He's not even right about what he's saying. He's just like, they're coming for the border. They're going to Texas, and then they're going to New York. They're just making it to New York. No, they're not. They're coming in legally and staying. What are you talking about? Holy fuck.
They end up living in the inner city. They compete against black people with high school or less for jobs. There are about 1 million fewer black people working than who would otherwise be working if it weren't for illegal alien labor. And illegal alien labor, according to a study done by the Civil Rights Commission, puts downward pressure to the tune of almost $2,000 per year on the salaries of black people living in the inner city. And
sure. Yeah. Sure. You should probably punish the businesses that are letting it happen.
Donald Trump gave us the most secure border we ever had. He also...
That's not true. I don't know what you're talking about.
Supported school choice. He also did the First Step Act, which allowed about 5,000 mostly black men with long criminal sentences, nonviolent, to have their sentences reduced an average of 70 months per.
That's good. Yeah, no, that's a W for Trump, the first one that he's got.
He pardoned Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champ. Even Barack Obama didn't do that.
Okay.
He did an extraordinary job for black
I don't know anything about Jack Johnson.
I think you're innocent until proven guilty, but I feel like President Biden had 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. President Obama had 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. Y'all would be telling them that they need to step aside and they shouldn't be running for president.
Well, I wouldn't vote for Barack Obama or for Joe Biden in any case, no matter whether he had indictments or no indictments. I don't vote for taxpayer and regulate liberal.
Right, but the point is that you wouldn't vote for him if he had those indictments. So and you being okay with voting for Trump is funny.
You're a conservative, right? Obviously.
No question.
What initially made you gravitate towards being a conservative?
I think it was my father. My father was a lifelong Republican.
I mean, a lot of black people are conservative. That's just a reality.
And my father always told my brothers and me the following: Democrats want to give you something for nothing. When you try to get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something. And my dad, I told you about his background. He told my brothers and me that hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. You cannot control the outcome, Larry, but you are 100% in control of the effort. Before you moan or groan about what somebody did or said to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it, and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? And finally, Charlemagne, my dad, told my brothers and me this: no matter how hard you work, how good you are, sooner or later, bad stuff is going to happen to you. How you deal with those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man. I wrote a book about my father's life. It's called Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 lives, 8 hours. It's about an 8-hour conversation he and I had, where at the beginning of the conversation, I thought my dad was harsh I thought he spanked us too often. We had a belt in those days.
He probably was too harsh, but okay.
In the South, you spank kids. And I thought my dad was way too harsh. And we had an eight-hour conversation.
He probably was. My mother was very harsh too. She used to hit me all the time. And then like we had gone to therapy when I was younger, and the therapist was like, this is not helping. Because I was a tough kid. I'd never blame my mother for it. I was a tough kid, and the therapist was like, you need to stop. It's not helping. And she stopped. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, there's people who just think that that's the right way to go. She was a single mother who raised me, who worked 50 or 60 hours a week. I was a very behavioral kid. I'm fucking huge, so my mom would hit me sometimes. And it is what it is, man. And like, she didn't do it to be hateful, but it wasn't productive. It rarely is ever productive, hitting your kids. And people just don't know that because of historical practice. Like, yeah, you're supposed to do that. That helps. Not really. So, but like, yeah, probably was hitting you too much, in general.
Conversation. And by the time we ended, my dad got bigger and bigger and bigger, and Larry Oldie got smaller and smaller and smaller, and I apologized to him. And it's a book that's changed a lot of people's lives. It's called, as I said, Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 Lives, 8 Hours. The paperback is called A Lot Like Me. Same book, but it's cheaper.
Can you honestly say this is the Republican Party that you grew up on? This modern day GOP?
Yes. The Republican.
It's not. There have been so many Republicans that have been like Republican, elected officials who've dropped out because of Trump has made the party fucking deranged.
The party pretty much has always stood for low taxes, low regulation, peace through strength, not strength through peace, and strong borders. And
peace through strength. What are you talking about?
Still does. And when Donald Trump is gone, and he will be gone, even if he gets reelected, day after he gets reelected, he's a lame duck, the party will still go on. The principles will still go on. However, I do believe that many people in our party have...
There's zero fiscal responsibility in the Republican Party. Like, this is just not true. If there was some of that, I'd be more open to be like, oh, okay. Sure. But it's just there's no fiscal responsibility in the Republican Party anymore. I understand you want to cut taxes. You don't get to just cut taxes. You should be cutting programs. But then again, we need a lot of programs. But you wouldn't just cut taxes. Nobody's trying to balance out the finances.
Spent and spent and spent. So
another thing that Biden did really well was he increased the IRS, the strength of the IRS to go after people making over $400,000 a year that were taking advantage of the system. That's a positive to me.
Ronald Reagan, my favorite president, when he entered the Oval Office.
I'm pretty sure Ronald Reagan set into motion the destruction of everything. Didn't he like fuck things up with when it comes to something to do with fucking like CEOs or some shit? I should be more educated on this, so I'm obviously not. But I'm pretty sure like Ronald Reagan like set into the pace of like how fucked up our annual federal deficit was.
Maine, when he left, government was bigger. It got bigger under George Herbert Walker Bush. It got bigger under W. It got bigger under Donald Trump. And the only way to
what?
Government spent and spent, so that Ronald Reagan, my favorite president, when he entered the Oval Office, Charlemagne, when he left, government was bigger. It got bigger under George Herbert Walker Bush. It got bigger under W. It got bigger under Donald Trump. And the only way to restrain spending is with an amendment to the Constitution to fix spending to a certain percentage of the GDP, with exception for war and for natural disaster. Otherwise, we're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Let me use the word unsustainable. That's the word Barack Obama used to describe the so-called entitlements.
Right, but Barack Obama was reduced the annual federal deficit. Barack Obama inherited a $1.4 trillion annual federal deficit. By the time he was out of office in 8 years, it was down to $650 billion. He was getting spending under control, and then we elected Trump, and then spending got back out of fucking control. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Unsustainable was a word that Bill Clinton used to describe them. But nothing happens because if you run claiming you're going to reform Social Security or Medicare, the other side is going to accuse you of not caring about.
Yeah, right. But Barack Obama was doing. He was successfully doing it though. So.
The sick, the poor, the elderly, and you are going to lose elections. That's why government gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we need a law to restrain spending. Otherwise, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And for young people like you, these programs are not going to be there.
Mr. Elder, I know a lot of black conservatives, and I completely agree about the black family. I don't think anybody here objects to that.
Don't disagree about that at all.
I think when you talk about ideology and then you mix in parties and then personalities, it gets kind of confusing. And, you mentioned yourself not to moan and groan, that as long as you work hard, all is well. And I think where the conflict is coming in is you did moan and groan about how the Republicans treated you. You did moan and groan about Governor Newsom and, asking for a recall. You did not leave that up to the voters. You are moaning and groaning when it comes to Donald Trump and how he's being treated. So it just seems to be a hypocrisy. And I don't know if the message
it's not a bad point to make.
Would land a little bit better if there was.
I mean, fundamentally, he's moaning and groaning about how the system is treating different people poorly, while telling black people not to complain about how the system may be treating them poorly.
Some fairness across the board on Democrats and Republicans. I'm an independent, by the way, and I think both parties are trash. And I think all of us here, see both sides, and that's the part that's just not landing for me. There seems to be an unfairness on both sides with you.
Well, not too surprisingly, I don't agree with your analysis. How is it that I did not leave the recall to the voters? What do you mean by that?
What do
you said I didn't leave the recall to the voters.
No. I said you moaned and groaned about it. You said it should be recalled, correct? correct?
I said Gavin Newsom should have been recalled, yes.
Right, that's moaning and groaning.
Well, actually, it's taking advantage of what's in the California Constitution, which is when a certain percentage of voters sign a petition to recall a politician, there can be a recall vote, and there was one, as there was in 2003.
Right, but it's still moaning and groaning, right? So
We recalled the governor then, and there was in 2021 when I attempted to recall Gavin Newsom. That's part of our democratic process in California.
Absolutely. We agree with that. I'm going to your statement when you said rather than moan about it. A little while ago, you said rather than moan about it, I'm just going to keep doing the hard work. And so I'm just saying that technically is moaning about it because the governor's the same. That's my point, sir.
I don't follow exactly what you're saying. I really
it's okay. I didn't expect you to.
Yeah,
but it's
I'm
one moment.
I'm a little slow sometimes.
One moment. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
One moment you're complaining about the
she's so rude.
system, and the next minute you're saying the system is fair. The next minute you're saying it's not fair. So that's what I'm saying. There just seems to be a double standard on you and the system, not wanting to be accountable for a system that black people are not in charge of, by the way, of not wanting to hold both sides accountable when it comes to the system.
Do I believe Hillary was treated differently and Joe Biden treated differently than Donald Trump has been?
No, they weren't at all treated differently. I don't know what to tell you. But
Treated? Yes, I do. Is that an indictment about whether or not America is systemically racist? No, it is not.
They're two totally different things.
Yes,
I think there's a difference between, like, I forget the email shit, but I know it was like blown out of proportion. And it lost her the election because it came back up. I forget the specifics, but it's nowhere near Trump calling for fucking riots and saying that the government had an unfair election, claimed voter fraud, even though there was no like any substantial voter fraud that changed the election in any capacity, caused January 6th. There were like 14 people arrested or indicted that worked with him from the Russian probe. I mean, we're not talking about the same thing in any real capacity. So
you're trying to merge the two, but they're two totally.
And what is with Joe Biden? Like, what happened with Joe Biden? His son does drugs, and his penis is on a laptop. And his son was a what is it called? He was a consultant for a fucking company. Who cares? Like, what was it? Ukraine? It doesn't matter. That's very normal. He had the Biden name. That's nepotism. People have that happens all the time. Doesn't mean that there's any magical trade secrets going on. So.
Different things.
I agree with you. The two different things. We're agreeing. We're agreeing. The two different things. We're agreeing.
No, we're agreeing the two different things. We're not agreeing that there's not systematic racism because we're not in charge of the system, sir. In case you.
Okay. All right. Can we?
Black people have never been in charge of
Benghazi. What about Benghazi? Like, shit went down. They like, again, what did Hillary do? My understanding of Benghazi, I'm a little rusty, was that there was a claim that there was going to be an attack on Benghazi, on the fucking whatever building, the government building there, and they didn't take the threat seriously, and then people had passed away. It's terrible, but like the reality is that there's always tons of threats, and that's why it wasn't taken as serious. It's not something that like she didn't do a horrible, terrible thing. So, you know.
Any system.
Well, actually, we have been. Take Baltimore.
No, we've never been in charge of
May I finish?
Tell me, what financial system are black people in charge of? What healthcare system are black people in charge of? What government system are black people in charge of?
I'm about ready to tell you.
What prison system are black people in charge of?
I'm about ready to tell you.
I'm not talking about mayors. I already know that talking point, sir. I go on Fox News all the time as well. So let's not go there with that. I said, what system have we created? Have we implemented that we have been in charge of? Name one.
Is this why you don't like talking to black women, Larry Elder?
Wow. Baltimore. Freddie Gray a few years ago.
No. That's mayors. I'm not talking. I said system.
I'm going to tell you about this system if you allow me to finish my point.
I agree with what she's saying, but she needs to like let him speak. Like I understand what she's like. There's no system in America that was created by black people, right? So she's not wrong about that. But I just want to hear him, make a point. It'd be nice. That would just be nice.
I'm not talking about somebody elected and doing a job, sir. I asked what system did we create? What financial system?
Okay, let's talk about the system of one of the largest.
Thank
you. One of the systems of one of the largest cities in America, Baltimore. Freddie Gray died in police custody a few years ago. The mayor was black. Okay. The head of the police department was black. Number two.
It's not in charge of the system, but go ahead.
Number two person in charge of the police department was black. All the city council, Democrats, majority black.
Still not in charge of the system.
Wow.
That's a position.
6 officers charged.
Let him finish before you make a point. Holy fuck.
3 of them were black. A judge before whom 2 of the officers tried their case found him not guilty was black.
Still not in charge of the system.
The city intendant of public schools was black. The county superintendent of public schools was black. The attorney general at the time, Loretta Lynch, is black, as was the president of the United States, was black. And yet,
still not in charge of the system. I asked you a simple question, sir.
Well, Wanda Sykes said when Barack Obama got elected, how are you going to complain about the man when you are the man? Now, from the president to the attorney general to the state attorney.
Well, I think that she was probably making a joke. But okay.
To the mayor, to the head of the police department, to the commission of the schools in the city and in the county, to the majority of city council in that city, all of them are black. And you're still saying that we don't run anything?
So who's in charge of the
No.
So, like, you would first of all listen to what he had to say, and then you would respond, right? That would be the most effective way. I don't know if they know that, but so for one, if there's black people in the system, there's obviously they have more control over like a system. It's just the reality. But you could make the argument that's like, okay, yeah, there might have been black people elected, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't absorbing the teachings from a systemically oppressive, institution, right? That's what you would be able to respond to with that. But one of the ways that these things end up happening is that, like, the way that like these racist ideologies perpetuate themselves is, again, black people have been so beaten down into the system that there are some pockets of very poor black areas that are poor and black because of a historical denial of opportunity, and they hate the system because they've been oppressed by the system and people in the system, and then they hate police officers, and they're causing more problems, not because they're black but because of the oppression that they've faced. And then they start to hate police. They take it out on the police, and then the police, regardless of the color, are going to look at the individuals causing the problem and go, oh, I don't like these individuals. Right, so that's how like the system kind of perpetuates itself, to the point where you'll see black police officers that start to dislike black, they start to dislike the black people they work with, or not work with, they'll dislike the black people that they're in the communities, because they're like, well, these are the individuals causing most of the problems, and it's like this self-hatred ideology, right? So like you could make an argument against it, so.
I said, who created the system? I didn't say we didn't run anything. I challenged a lot of those black leaders, by the way. I said, when we talk about the system, what black people have been in charge of any system? I'm not talking about a position. I'm not talking about a mayor.
So you're basically saying that they're black faces that are still in those positions, but they're still
correct. Similar to you, Mr. Elder. You're a black face in a position in the conservative movement. They're just the same. They're just on the other side. I'm talking about.
So then, when Martin Luther King said in 1966, I believe there could be a black president in about 40 years' time, then it really doesn't matter whether there's one or isn't. Nothing changes. He was naive. He was naive then.
Killed him as well. Well, we know that the FBI and the CIA also killed him. That system. You realize that, correct?
Wow. An individual killed him.
Right. That was also part of Pro Hotel through the system. Correct?
Yeah. Not correct. Not correct. He was killed.
The FBI didn't have anything to do with it. The CIA didn't have anything to do with
it.
J.
Edgar Hoover was definitely on Martin's ass. Like, come on.
I didn't say he wasn't. Oh. Robert Kennedy is the one that approved the wiretaps. But to say that the FBI killed him, I mean, what's your evidence of that?
Oh, no,
that's a pretty serious charge.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Pretty serious charge. Yeah. Serious charge requires serious evidence.
Yeah.
What is your enforcement law proposal?
It is to allow states to set up commissions of retired judges and retired DAs to get rid of these soft on crime, George Soros-backed DAs that are allowing a bunch of bad people on the streets, or not charging bad people to the full extent of the law. And the people that, by and large, that are hurt by these people are the very black and brown people living in the inner city. There's a Larry Krasner is a George Soros-backed DA in Philadelphia. He's been impeached. But this
George Soros thing is so annoying because it's like this weird like anti-Semitic call. When they say George Soros, they're usually, every time somebody brings up George Soros, it's usually to try to push this like weird idea to people that like Jews control everything. It really is. Like that's what people will use, like will use George Soros as like a dog whistle. It's so annoying because he's Jewish, so they're like, oh, he funds it. They're saying he funded the border wall, and it's like this weird like anti-Jewish conspiracy theory to fucking try to. It's just so annoying. So I don't know why the George Soros thing is just it just bothers the shit out of me.
The state senate wouldn't even take up the case. We've had 2 attempts to repeal a soft on crime DA in LA County, and it hasn't gone through yet.
What's funny is like what's interesting is that like you obviously have to be correct on crime, right? There needs to be proportionality. But like the crime bill in New York is something that conservatives constantly bitch about because it puts more disproportionately put more black people in like prison and stuff, and they talk about how like they were so much harder on crime and it destroyed those communities, blah blah blah. And now you're like, oh, we need to be harder on crime. I mean, it is interesting. We definitely need to be hard on crime, but there's also systemic issues to address, which I don't even think that conservatives or progressives are necessarily satisfying. But
we've got a bunch of, in my opinion, this guy Alvin Bragg. He ran promising to get Donald Trump, and when he got in, he said the evidence wasn't there. And then one of the former DAs writes a book, accuses Bragg of giving Donald Trump a pass, and all of a sudden he brings counts against Donald Trump. I think it's unfair.
Do you think members of your party are leaning toward fascism?
Define fascism.
Maybe. Probably to a reasonable extent. I mean, when you have the president calling to overturn the government because he doesn't believe that their election happened, like, yeah, you'd probably argue that there's some kind of authoritative situation. Donald Trump said something along the lines of that, like he wished that he could arrest or he could make it illegal to like it's something to do with the media and speaking out against them and speaking out against free media.
Zed King super chatted $5. I find it funny how much conservatives talk about George Soros being a corrupt elite, yet they simp for Elon Musk, the richest man in the world.
True. Okay.
Define fascism.
I mean, the rejection of democracy, the rule of law, and equal rights under the law in favor of a strong man, Donald Trump, who interprets the popular will.
Yeah, I mean, you probably, if you're going to think like that. Thank you so much, Zeke, for the donation. Yeah.
No, I don't. There was a long article.
I mean, he tried to weaponize the government to try to maintain his being elected, even though he lost. So
about Barack Obama by one of my mentors. His name is Thomas Sowell. He's an economist, black conservative, still alive, around 95 years old. And he wrote a piece in which he said a lot of people call people like Barack Obama socialist. Socialism is government ownership of the means of production. Fascism is when the government allows you to own means of production, but the government tells you what to do. And he said, frankly, technically, people like Barack Obama are fascists. That is to say, these are left-wing people telling you how to run your business, telling you what to sell, telling you what you can't sell. For example, in California.
For example, cigarettes. Like, what are you talking about? These are just restrictions. This is what a weird pivot away. Like, of course, you have to have regulations on what you can and can't sell to some reasonable degree. What?
We have a governor named Gavin Newsom who recently said by the year 2035, no more sale of new gas-powered cars.
Okay, so we're talking about Donald Trump, who wanted to overthrow the government because he lost the election. You're talking about, hey, we have a climate change crisis. We should deal with that. And those are the same to you. That's just dumb. Okay.
How dare you?
Why?
Most people don't want an EV. They like their own gasoline-powered cars.
Who cares? Like, not everything, like, not for nothing, but like sometimes things need to be done. Like, there is an issue. I don't know. A hot take. Climate change is real. We have an impact on it from the shit. Go, if you disagree with me, go into your garage and just turn on your car and, you know, fucking huff what's coming out of the back of the car. I wouldn't. Don't do that because you'll die. But the point is that it's horribly toxic, bad shit that you shouldn't be breathing in. If it's bad for your mouth, it's probably bad for the environment. We need to make changes, and part of those changes are going to be getting away from gasoline. Okay, that's it. There's a reason for it. So, yeah.
But now you're telling car dealerships they can't even sell them? What do you call that?
But what about
smart? Probably. You know, as long as it's done over a period of time.
When you tell women what to do with their bodies.
Well, that is a moral issue. I happen to be pro-life, and I believe.
Well, it's also a moral issue of not destroying the planet because it will all die. Right? It's a moral issue.
I believe that that abortion is a sin. That's not telling women what to do with their body. That's expressing my opinion about whether or not it is.
Yeah, but then you're trying to legislate around that, right? And I understand that, but you know, separation of church and state is obviously a thing.
Right, or it is wrong, for example.
And like, obviously, I don't believe that a fetus is a person. It doesn't have personhood assigned to it. You know what I mean? Until a certain point. So, yeah, I mean, that's why it's okay to get abortions. I don't think it's ideal, but
there is a guy right now behind bars in Philadelphia named Dr. Kermit Gosnell. Okay. He is an abortion doctor who performed late-term abortions. Okay. When I ask people who consider my position to be extreme, I ask them, tell me at what point you believe pregnancy has gone so far that to terminate the unborn would be homicide, and almost nobody will give you an answer. So in other words, what you're really telling me then is this guy, Dr. Kermit Gosnell, should be set free. He's a political prisoner. He was persecuted unfairly. If you won't tell me when you think...
well, I mean, I don't know who this guy is, but if he was just performing abortions, like, yeah, he should be set free. I don't know.
What point a pregnancy cannot be terminated unless it's homicide, then to me, you're...
I mean, like, honestly, there's no point in pregnancy that I would consider homicide. Here's what I would say. I think, like, ideally first trimester. I understand second trimester, but there should be exceptions in the third trimester for, like, the threat of the mother and the child, or the child, right? In some capacity. Like, that's what I think. You know, I'm more for first trimester, honestly, more than anything else. So, yeah.
Essentially allowing women to kill the unborn, no matter how old that unborn is. And I think that's wrong. The other thing, Charlamagne, real quickly on this issue, it'd be one thing if the pro-life community was not talking the talk and walking the walk. But there are literally thousands of pregnancy centers all over America.
Well, they're not. The pro-life isn't pro-life. Pro-life is pro-birth, and then they stop caring the second it's over. That's why you're not for welfare programs. You're pro... in any like decent capacity. It's pro-birth, and then it's like, I don't care anymore. The conservatives are always the ones that are shutting down conversations about like expanding money into adoption centers and whatnot. So like, yeah, if talking the talk, like, that means like if you were for an expansion of that, like, sure, go for it. But I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's not pro-life. It's pro-birth. I mean, like, healthcare is pro-life. You're not pro-life. You're pro people being born because it makes you feel a way. It makes you feel better about yourself, but it doesn't actually have a positive impact to not let people get abortions. Like, if you were actually pro-life, you would be for better education, not for this dumb fucking idea of school choice, because it's not effective. It's a stupid idea. because then people will be more educated and stop having sex and having kids earlier. You'd be for comprehensive sexual health education for young people in school so that they will have alternatives to having sex. They'll practice safer sex measures, but you're probably not for that either because you're conservative. Could be wrong. But like, yeah, I mean, like that would actually have a reasonable reduction. You know, there's conservatives who aren't even for like, you know, pregnancy or birth control. That's another way that you could reduce you know, these or preventative measures to having, you know, before people get pregnant and have to have abortions. So
whether it's funding for adoption services, funding for housing, funding for
conservatives they don't want that.
Education, funding for job training, to let women know they have alternatives. And every state.
No, a lot of these different like religious organizations, pro-life organizations or pro-birth, what they do is they set up institutions and then they lie to the women, telling them that they have more time left to have before they can get an abortion, and that they should just rethink it. And then they end up not being able to get an abortion because they go past the time that they need to. Like this, it's disgusting.
Decide this. The government shouldn't be passing some sort of law one way or the other regarding abortion. Every state's going to decide that. I'm in California, which is a deep blue state.
The state is the government. The government should be able to. Okay.
There have been 2 initiatives to restrict abortion. I voted in favor of them. I was overwhelmingly defeated. And when abortion has been put on the ballot in recent years, the people that wanted abortion restrictions have lost. The American people pretty much have said first-term abortions, they want them to be legal. Late-term abortions, they don't want them to be legal. I happen to disagree with that, but I'm willing to live in a...
Yeah, I'm fine with that. The late-term abortion should just be legal in the case of like a threat to the mother of the child.
Society that has a different point of view than I have on this issue.
Can you have a real?
Okay, but then you don't think it's murder. There's no way that you would be like, yeah, I don't think it's right, but it's okay if people vote for it. Then you don't actually think it's a murder or it's killing an actual person. Because there's no way, if you actually thought it was murder, you would be rioting in the streets. Conservatives don't think that it's actual murder. They just pretend to. It's just not. So I don't know what to tell you.
Democracy, if you're taking away people's power of choice. If you're taking away people's power to choose and not giving them any options.
Well, if you consider it to be a crime, that abortion is a sin, in my opinion, you're not taking people's right to choose. You're making a moral statement about what's right and what's wrong.
There's a lot of sins, though. Sex before marriage is a sin. I'm sure you did some of that.
As for the sins of my past, either the Lord has forgiven me or the statute of limitations has run out. I'm making a joke about that. A lot of people, of course, make mistakes.
I knew he was making a joke, but I liked how he had to tell us he was making a joke. So it sounds like a stupid point that Charlemagne is making, but he's not really, only because the Bible has it categorizes things in a weird way. Like the Bible categorizes, like it's seemingly in the way that it talks about slavery to the same as being like gay. It's like those things are both sins. There's no, at least from what I've seen, no proportionality of one being better or worse, right? And so for him to be like, yeah, the Bible says that adultery is bad too. It also, so, Is this so bad? Is it the same proportionality of being bad? Well,
mistakes, yes. Okay. And I think that people should deal with the consequences of their actions. And if you let people know their consequences to their actions, it will inform their actions and make them behave more responsibly. Anytime you allow bad behavior to continue, you're going to get more bad behavior, whether that's...
So how does that apply to President Trump then? Because you said that was a two-tier system.
Like, I generally agree with the statement, absolutely. But there needs, in general, what people need to understand is that there needs to be first of all, a proportional punishment to people's crimes. Or punishment to people's bad decisions. And second of all, there needs to be, if you give people too much stress, then they cannot overcome it. So like, yeah, the idea, like, yeah, you should be generally held accountable for bad decisions. And maybe you aren't if you're getting an abortion, but you kind of are, because it's literally destroying your body. Having an abortion hurts your body. It makes you less likely to get pregnant again. It's not necessarily a good thing. We do shame people in general for getting abortions. And to be honest with you, I think that there's a level of need for it. You shouldn't feel good about it. You should feel like, oh, I made a mistake. And I should never do it again. I think most people do that, not all people. I like to say that most people get abortions don't usually get a second one. But like if you give people too much stress on a bad decision that they make, they're not going to be able to recover from it. And that's kind of the concept. And like that's how everything works. You need to be able to recover from a bad choice in order to be better. And if you end up being like, let's say you're a kid, you're 15, you end up getting pregnant, like to tell that kid like you have to have the baby, that could be the destruction of any other choice the person has, right? So
system that
because I don't believe Donald Trump.
You don't think he did anything?
I don't think he did anything wrong. No, I don't. I believe that he complained about the election the same way Hillary did. Hillary for 4 years referred to the 2016 elections having been stolen. Her word, not mine.
I mean, maybe. I don't really think that that's true. I mean, I think that her argument was that like last second they decided to reopen like the whole fucking email thing, which made her lose whatever. But it's not the same as saying that the government is wrong about it and trying to overthrow the government and like causing a fucking riot. What are you talking about? It's not the same. Hillary's certainly not the same as Donald Trump. It's not the same at all.
She called Donald Trump illegitimate, her word, not mine. Jay Johnson, who's Obama's DHS secretary, testified under oath that not a single vote tally was changed by the Russians. They tried, but they failed to change a single vote tally.
I think the actual argument was that they were trying to have, well, we know for a, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but this is like objectively true that Russia had an impact on our election. Like, people need to understand that this is a fact. It's not debatable. And they were doing it by using social media. This is a fact, right? That's just an objective fact. You're just wrong. The question was whether Donald Trump did something illegal to help facilitate that, and I believe the answer is no. So what you're saying is incorrect. Russia had an impact on the election. They were running bot farms that were pushing out disinformation about like or Democrats and whatnot. So, you know, they even went as far. They even went as far as to, what did I just die to? Okay. They even went as far as to like run like BLM accounts and shit too. Like they were trying to, or run like different accounts. They were trying to stoke like angers and aggressions. Yeah, like it's a fact that they were trying to have an impact. You know, like, so they did have an impact. It was a huge thing. We've had a huge fucking Congress was like yelling at people on Facebook and shit over it. What are you talking about?
66% of Democrats believe the Russians changed vote tallies to get Donald Trump elected, even though Jay Johnson testified under oath, not a single one was changed. That's the damage that people like Hillary and former President Jimmy Carter and Stacey Abrams and Hakeem Jeffries and others have said for years, referring to Donald Trump as illegitimate. A greater percentage of Democrats believe 2016 was stolen than we feel that way about 2020, but yet nobody calls them election deniers and nobody accuses them of undermining our republic. And they're not undermining our republic.
What statistic is he talking about? That he's just lying. There's no statistic that says, from what I'm looking at, there's no statistic that says 66% of Democrats think that Russia changed the tallies. It's that like 60% of Democrats believe that Russia meddled in the 2016 election, and that's a fact. That's an objective truth. It's a fact. It is a fact. It is if you don't believe me, you're just wrong. It's a fact that they did. What are you talking about? What?
Think about an election, you have a right to do so.
I know you probably got to go. Have you ever heard of the term?
I wish they could like push back against any of the things that are being said right now, because something he's saying is true. And they have a guy over there on a fucking computer. Like, look it up in the middle of this.
Nigga wake up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Oh, brother.
I'm just asking. You think you've ever
Well,
had
I'm acutely aware, Charlemagne, that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
I'm not gonna say it upset me, just like I'm not letting you upset me. You know what I mean? I don't tend to get upset over things like
well,
that. But what I did say,
well, you just not talk about a nigger wake-up call, and it seemed to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part to have a white guy come in here who also said, by the way, about Mitt Romney.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously think that what Joe Biden said was dumb and racist. It was a stupid thing. I don't know how much of that was his fucking dementia, but like, it is what it is. I mean, not good. It's a stupid thing to say. You know. It's like when you're playing Call of Duty and you accidentally let the word slip. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oopsie. But can you really fault somebody for that? I'm just kidding. You can, obviously.
Because he didn't want to put more regulations on Wall Street, he's going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about the civil rights record.
Oh, yeah. Wait, hold on a second.
Going to put more regulations on about Mitt Romney. Because he didn't want to put more regulations on Wall Street, he's going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. He lied and said that he tried to visit Nelson Mandela during apartheid South Africa. He did not. And he came in here and told you aren't even black and let you think a certain kind of way. It seemed to me that should have been a nigga wake-up call for you, but it wasn't, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, no, for the record, I'm not a Democrat or Republican.
I didn't say you were.
Yeah, I think both.
I don't know what you are. I never even asked you what your party affiliation.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, but you are black. And to have a white guy come in here and tell you have to think a certain kind of way, otherwise you, quote, ain't black. Wow.
How should I have replied to him, you think?
What I just now said, how dare you insult me and tell me I think as a human being, let alone as a black person? I don't tell you how to think, Joe Biden. How dare you come in here and tell me how I should think? I'm going to vote for Donald Trump if I want to vote for Donald Trump. And if I want to vote for Donald Trump, it does not make me not black. 20% of black people.
But doesn't Donald Trump like hire illegal immigrants in his businesses? And didn't you say before that that takes away from jobs from like black people? So wouldn't he... actually be racist then by that logic or something, like, right? Because he has like all of this Trump bullshit, and it came out that like he was hiring illegals, I believe. So okay, whatever.
Black men, as I said, voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Are they not black now? So only 80% of black men walking around are really black, 20% are not because they voted for Donald Trump. How insulting is that? How condescending is that?
I mean, you're probably right, but I didn't take it in that way.
Well, I did.
As I said to him in that moment, you know, it's just about me wanting something for my people, and I want to know what is he going to do for my people, and not only for my people now, how are you going to atone for the things you've done to my people?
Right.
That's it.
Right. And this is a guy, Joe Biden, who, when he first got into the Senate, hung out with segregationists, talked about how well he got along with them, talked about how he didn't want integration because of a jungle. This guy has made all sorts of insulting things to black people.
I think that one is misquoted. I remember looking into that. I'm pretty sure with that one, I don't think that it was against or non-segregation. I don't remember the specifics.
And his policies right now are hurting black people. Inflation hurts the people at the bottom more than anything else. Letting a bunch of illegal aliens into the border are hurting black people more than anybody else, as I said earlier. He opposes school choice when he has his own kids in private school. And we lost a year, almost 2 years of in-school education in California because of COVID that he supported. I mean, this guy has done monstrous things to black people. And then for him to come in here and tell you how you ought to think of the black person, that blew my mind.
As a person objectively who doesn't care about either party, when I just take a step back and I just look at everything that's happening, I see one party that seems still committed to democracy somewhat, and one party who's headed fast.
Oh yeah, what he actually said was, unless we do something about this, my children are going to grow up in a jungle. The jungle being a racial jungle with tensions being having built so high it was going to explode at some point. I don't think that he's calling black people or saying that it's because of black people. I think he's saying that the jungle is just referring to how much animosity there are between white and black people. I don't think that he was being racist. I'm pretty like that's one of the problems is like there's so many different things here that like when you say that and try to make it seem like he said something racist there, you're probably being dishonest. It's hard to take anything that you have as credit.
That's towards fascism. That's just my personal opinion. So who do you think I would vote for?
Well, let's talk about fascism since I assume you're talking about election denying. In 2000
and like causing a riot.
When George W. Bush won the election over Al Gore, the Democrats, the first week of January 2001, tried to overturn the results in Florida. 2004, George W. Bush gets...
oh my God, hold on. I'm pretty sure there was an actual vote miscounting, though. But okay.
Reelected. Democrats, including Benny Thompson, the chair of the January 6th committee, Jamie Raskin, a member of the January 6th committee, joined with 28 other House Democrats, and Senator Barbara Boxer to overturn the results in Ohio, claiming without any evidence...
Like, was an actual nightmare. Like, that was like a legitimate, like, reported nightmare. I don't think anybody stole the election. I think that there was like a huge infrastructure problem. It's different from going on social media and talk about how we have to fight now harder more than ever.
The Debo voting machine had been hacked. 2016, January 2017, Democrats challenged more states trying to get the election overturned that elected Donald Trump. Then Donald Trump challenged the first week of January in 2021. Nobody accused them of undermining our republic. Nobody accused them of being fascist.
Because Donald Trump got his answers that nothing actually happened, and he still asserted that he was robbed of the election, and he was like doing a call to action, and like January 6th happened as a direct result of what he was saying. He was saying incredibly insane shit.
Exercised whatever means they could to try to win the election. I want to remind you that Hillary Clinton advised Joe Biden during the 2020 election, if it is a close election, quote, do not concede under any circumstances, close quote. Donald Trump used whatever legal means he could, advancing some novel legal theories to try to stay in office, and he failed. But I don't blame him for trying.
He's still bitching about it. It's not that he even tried in the first place. It's that after he got his no, there are some leaked things that some people can interpret as him trying to get them to, like there was a moment where he told somebody find the votes and I'll it'll be very good for your career. I mean, some people can interpret that as Donald Trump saying that like make up the votes so that and I'll give you some kind of political power. Now he also might just be a fucking idiot, but yeah, he was saying things like the fight's just begun. He was reporting that it was statistically impossible that he would have lost. He was talking about how the FBI did nothing about the voter fraud. That was very obvious. See you in January. See January 6th. See you in DC. These were definitely calls to action. Like literally saying that like the fight has just begun, saying that this was a fight that's just begun is you telling people that they should fight against the government. Like he's actively calling for a fight. I don't know what you want me to tell you. Okay.
Fine.
Yeah, but it's not just election denying. It's the disdain of women in fear of non-standard gender identities and sexual orientation.
Disdain
it's
for
the
women.
galvanizing of popular rage against cultural elites. It's nationalism based on dominant, superior race and historic bloodlines.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. I don't I don't know, man. If you're a fucking lunatic that loves Donald Trump, this is why people stormed the Capitol, or whatever. You know. Okay.
There's a lot of things that Republicans are doing.
If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. If you don't fight like hell, we're not going to have a country anymore. Okay. Cool.
What about Joe Biden going to Howard University as he did recently, giving a commencement speech, Charlemagne, and he said the number one threat to the homeland was white supremacy. Really?
Okay. That's your thing. Well, Donald Trump did incite a riot, but did you hear this Joe Biden guy said white supremacy was bad? Okay.
Yeah, I said that.
The Anti-Defamation League keeps track of how many people are killed by extremists, no matter the race of the extremists, every year. Last year, there were 25.
Okay.
As I said, in 2020, there were 11,000 blacks who were murdered, almost all murdered by other people.
Okay, well, people don't have to die to have a negative impact to white supremacy. I'm just saying. Like, what are you talking about?
Murdered by white extremists. It's a lie to say white extremists is a big problem in America. It's a lie. It's what Democrats do to get black people angry.
The FBI said that.
It's what Democrats.
Fine.
I don't agree with that. The number one threat to the homeland is a large number of people who are engaged in criminal activity. And what Democrats do is tell black people racism, racism, racism. They trot out David Duke or some other facsimile every 4 years to tell black people, vote for us because, after all, we're the party of racial justice, social justice, and equity. And these dastardly people over there, these Republicans, are the party of Jim Crow and slavery, even though it was the Democratic Party that was the party of Jim Crow and slavery.
So why should black people rock with the GOP then? Like,
I mean, I see more conservatives talking about how Democrats are the party of slavery. So, I mean, whatever. So not for nothing, just to be clear, David Duke endorsed Donald Trump's election. I just want to be very clear. So for some reason, even though the party of slavery and the KKK is Democrats, for some reason they endorse Trump. I wonder why that is. But okay.
Economics. I had Tavis Smiley and Cornel West on my radio show once, Charlemagne. And I told Tavis and Cornel West that under Ronald Reagan, black adult unemployment fell faster than white adult unemployment. Black Hispanic unemployment fell faster than did white unemployment. Black teenage unemployment fell faster than did white teenage unemployment. Black businesses were created at a rate faster, their revenues grew at a rate faster, and they both told me that I was wrong, and that they would have the data on my desk by Monday. That was 15 years ago. I know the mail is slow, but it seems to me they should have given it to me by now. Again, Donald Trump presided over the best economy ever for black people, lowest unemployment, and it seems to me the number one reason that most people vote is because of the economy. We have had 40-year historic high in inflation. We've had gas prices that are now about 4.
Okay, yeah, I'm just thinking really quick. I'm going to just rewind. I took a look into the Ronald Reagan shit. The biggest issue was drastic welfare program cuts, drastic cuts in different spendings, tax cuts, increased military spendings. But the biggest one is like the deregulation of particular markets. And my understanding is that deregulation is what led to the 2008 recession, because these banks were so unregulated. They were able to basically fuck around with our money, and they were so big and powerful. If we let them fall, it would have destroyed our economy even worse. So I think this is really the biggest issue. You can't deregulate to such a terrible degree.
Economy ever for black people. The mail is slow, but it seems to me they should have given it to me by now. Again, Donald Trump presided over the best economy ever.
His economy was shit. He drastically increases the annual federal deficit.
For black people, lowest unemployment, and it seems to me the number one reason that most people vote is because of the economy. We have had 40-year historic high in inflation. We've had gas prices that are now about 40% more than what they were.
Yeah, I mean, that's because of Russia. Like, Russia's literally trying to take over Ukraine, so we kind of have to, and like we get energy from them, right? So there's just an issue there. War's hard. Sorry.
When Joe Biden came into office, and we have about 7 million illegal aliens in our country, and the bulk of the suffering because of these illegal aliens will be borne by black people living in the inner city. Those are 3 reasons alone not to vote for the Democratic Party and vote for the Republican Party. And by the way, I'm not voting for a fishing buddy. It's not because I like.
I mean, business owners love illegal immigrants because they work for less, and so it's good for business. It is good for business, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, sure. Biden got actually going to pay $1.5 billion for border technology. So sounds like Biden's doing better than Trump.
Trump or like him personally, I'm voting for policies. And I don't really care whether or not his personality offends people and he does bad tweets. Maybe it might be better for our society if he were more polite. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not voting for a fishing buddy. I'm voting for somebody to keep taxes low, keep regulations low, to secure the borders and keep us out of unnecessary wars.
Would it be fun to have money in a fascist country? To be black and have money in a fascist country? Or to be anything other than
I don't agree this is a fascist country. It's always better to have money than not to have money.
All right. Anything else, Tess?
Well, just a simple question. Have the Republicans done anything that you disagree with, just out of curiosity?
They spend too much. I think taxes are still too high. I think that there are a lot of Republicans that support things like minimum wages. And by the way, Milton Friedman, one of my favorite economists, said the minimum wage is perhaps the most anti-black law in the statute books, close quote.
Milton Friedman, just so you guys know, is a huge supporter of UBI. That's a fact. I've watched him talk about it before. I believe his form of UBI would be a negative income tax. But he advocates for universal basic income. And so, like, I think a UBI is a great conservative perspective for, like, welfare programs. But it's so funny. It's like, oh, I love this guy. I love this guy. What the fuck? I love this conservative. He was for a massive welfare program. UBI is a welfare program, whether you want to, frame it like that or not. So, like, you can't take. You gotta take it all. You gotta take it all. You must be a UBI guy then.
At one time, a black teenager was more likely to have a job than a white teenager until the minimum wage came along and kicked it up and up and up. So their policies.
Minimum wage is a good idea. I just don't think that we should go with like a crazy.
Kermit_in_bed became a member.
Hey, thank you so much for the membership. Just to be clear, the way that I would do it is, sorry, these are just like re-up subs, would be to make it so that we had a minimum wage that would raise proportionate to inflation, and then implement like a UBI, right? This way you could pay people, differently in better ways. It makes small businesses more competitive. It's just like a better way to operate, in my opinion. Incredible. What the fuck's happening to me? So
that the Republican Party supports, like minimum wage. Some of them do that I don't like. Also kinds of licensing, unnecessary licensing. I was at an Apple store a few years ago, and this black woman waited on me, and she was very sharp technically. I'm not very technically sharp, and I was very impressed. And I said, "Have you always been technically sharp?" She goes, "Well, not really. I'm just here because I want to earn enough money to get a license to cut hair." I said, "Black hair?" She said, "Yes." I said, "You don't know how to cut black hair already? I have black barbers in my family. Everybody learned how to cut hair on their own." She said, "Well, in California, you have to have a license to get. You have to have a license to open up a shop to cut hair." I thought,
well, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to have licenses to do things, fundamentally.
How much does it cost? She said $5,000. I said, "You need to get a $5,000 license to learn how to do something you already know how to do? What is that?" So,
I mean, a license helps you put you in a database so you can be held accountable for the way that you do business. How are you against anything? Like, can a Chuck E. Cheese sell fucking liquor? Like, what would you regulate? Nothing? Like, I don't understand.
A lot of the rules and regulations. Okay, fair.
It's hard to get around them systems, no matter how hard you work.
Well, the system applies to both blacks and whites too. But fair enough, those systems ought to be struck down. So there are lots of things Republicans do that I don't.
But it's not just cutting hair. You know that. They have to train how to learn with diseases and to make sure your clippers are clean and make sure certain things that you have to follow certain.
Yeah, there's certain protocols that you have to follow.
Protocols so that you can be a barber, so that you can make sure that the community's safe when you're doing these protocols.
Well, if there weren't government protocols, there'd be other protocols. For example.
Well, no, there wouldn't. There'd be no non-government protocols for business that were detrimental to a business. No business is going to cut their bottom dollar just because of the government, just out of the kindness of their heart. There would be no regulation. There'd be no cleanliness regulation from a business or any regulation for anything, how to treat their workers, nothing, unless that regulation financially benefits them. And since these regulations don't typically financially benefit them, the government has to step in and say, hey, you know what, we have to have you do X, Y, and Z. So
there's something called the Consumer Reports. That's not government. And it comes out and it talks about cars and what cars are good, cars are safe. If government didn't do these kinds of things, entrepreneurs would step in and they would have licensing. So there'd be a little sticker on the window when you go to a barbershop and it would say, "I've been approved by so-and-so licensing board or organization."
Some of it's bullshit.
That's just, why would I want an independent place doing that? Then they'd be easy to bribe. I mean, sure, you can bribe the government, but I trust the government institution of some kind of health grading standard on food than I would some random fucking magazine that if they're buddy with somebody could just be like, fuck it. What are you talking about? Like, I like capitalism and different aspects of it, but at the end of the day, like, you need the government to take a role in some of these things. It's not all these things like what's stopping a business from putting like fucking, like, even right now, our McDonald's is like worse than the McDonald's in like Europe because our FDA doesn't give a fuck about some of the substances in it. Like, they don't care. What are you talking about? Like, it's not magical. Like, there needs to be government intervention on some things. It's just a stupid idea to be like purely libertarian. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Is too much, though.
There are all sorts of things that we would do if the government was not doing them.
Do you have a black barber?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
Actually, I have a black barber for 25, 30 years. He got cancer, and now the person that owns the shop, who is Latina, cuts my hair.
Okay. I do want to ask one.
Oh, so he doesn't know black barber.
Final question. When do you think systemic racism ended? Since you said it don't exist anymore, when did it end?
I can't come up with a specific time, but Civil Rights Act.
Can we?
You would say 1965 if you believe that. That would be the specific time that you believe that it's systemic racism ended, no?
Civil Rights Act of 1964, Brown versus Board of
65,
Education,
whatever,
the Loving versus Virginia Act that struck down race mixing. You couldn't, for 13 states, you couldn't marry a white woman. Again, I think that when Barack Obama got elected, that was a big deal. When Obama got elected, this is really important. He got elected with a little more than 52% of the vote. He walks into the Oval Office the third week of January. He had a 70% approval. Now, how can that be? How can 15% all of a sudden support this man? It wasn't because they wanted capital gains taxes raised, which Obama promised to do. It wasn't because of Obamacare, which Obama promised to do. It's because many Americans said, at the very least, he'll stop the nonsense that America remains systemically racist. And for 8 years, in my humble opinion, he played race card after race card after race card. So when he entered the Oval Office, both blacks and
When did he play the race card?
whites thought race relations would get better. When he left, both blacks and whites thought they got worse. Why? Because he did things like the Cambridge police acted stupidly when they didn't. If I had a son, he looked like Trayvon. When what happened to Trayvon had nothing to do with his race. He embraced Black Lives Matter. He invited out.
Well, I don't know that that's true. My understanding, and it's a while ago, of the is just hold on. This is the George Zimmerman case. My understanding, and I was younger at the time, my understanding is that you had just some black kid walking around in a community that didn't have black people in it, and George Zimmerman walked up to him and was trying to be like, "What are you doing here?" Blah blah blah, and he was being overly pushy, and then it started an altercation because he was questioning him. So it probably did have something to do with race. I don't think George Zimmerman would have chased a white person down. And again, maybe he didn't chase him, but he wouldn't have constantly questioned a white person. It wouldn't have, led the altercation to go up in the way that it did. That's just an assumption. That's just an assumption, though. I guess I don't really know. But I could see why that would be an issue there. So
Al Sharpton in the White House over 70 times. He said that racism is in America's DNA. He said all sorts of things so that when he left, both blacks and whites thought race relations got worse.
Right, but sir, this is where and we can just agree to disagree, because you're mixing race relations and voters, what voters decided to do, who might just be very good people that decided to elect a black man, confusing with institutional system racism. And those are just two totally different things. And it's okay if we disagree to disagree. I'm talking about structures, not what voters did, or voters wanted to see better race relations. We're talking about structures, the same structures that you referenced several times that have also spited you. So that's
Joe Biden, for example, when Georgia reformed this law, said it was worse than Jim Crow. It's Jim Eagle. More blacks voted in Georgia than ever before. The percentage of blacks increased. If it's the structure, how is it that the structure did not stop black people from voting in Georgia?
Well, I'm not talking about voting, sir. I'm talking about, and just to be fair, I think Joe Biden and what Joe Biden did to African Americans, particularly with the war on drugs, was one of the worst things that actually happened to black people.
yeah, and I think a lot of black politicians voted for the war on drugs, so it's one of those things where we all kind of fucked up on that one. Huh?
Just to put that on the record, he too was a part of that system that I'm talking about. Democrats as well. I just try to stay balanced to say that same system it applies on both sides. Democrats and Republicans helped with mass incarceration. Joe Biden wrote it. So we have no problem. I have no problem condemning him as a Democrat for what he's done. I'm just talking about institutions versus relations are just two totally different things, and that's just where we disagree with that, and that's okay.
Well, we didn't really get into mass incarceration, but most people who are behind bars because they committed a violent crime against somebody else, and often the black people who are behind.
Are most people behind bars? What? What? Crime of jailed are. I mean, I agree. If you do a violent crime, you should go to jail. More than 3 in 5 people sentenced to state prison have been convicted of a violent crime. Compared with 1975, it was 30%. Okay, so 60% of people in state prison, not federal prisons, are violent crimes. That's a lot, but what about those other 38% of people? They may not necessarily be in there for a reason. Okay.
Behind bars committed a violent crime against another black person.
Well, when I'm talking about mass incarceration, I'm not talking about violent crimes. I'm talking about non-violent crimes, particularly the war on drugs. I was very clear in what I said.
I agree with you that I believe that the drug problem should be dealt with as a health problem rather than a criminal justice problem. But most people are not behind bars for using drugs or for dealing drugs. They're behind bars for having committed a violent act.
But there's still a lot of people who are behind bars for drugs
against another person.
Sure, but that wasn't what I was talking about. I was very clear when I talked about Joe Biden writing the crime bill and mass incarceration with war on drugs to nonviolent offenders. So that's a different conversation. You're weaving the two together. So we just have a disagreement on institutions versus race relations, and that's okay.
Well, in order for you to go to jail, you have to commit a crime. If you walk down the street,
not always when you're black.
It says 350,000 people. Interesting.
In America.
Well, where are the class action lawsuits, Charlamagne? We have all these black lawyers. Many black people have gone to law school. Where are the class action lawsuits claiming that a bunch of people are behind bars illegally, wrongfully. Where are they?
Aren't these all the policies that we've been talking about, like, to change? I mean, I don't know if there's class action lawsuits, but that's like the whole concept of, like, why does it need to be a class action lawsuit? There's tons of social advocacy about when it comes to these issues.
Do you think everybody that's behind
I didn't
bars
say that.
behind bars?
I didn't say that. Why don't you answer my question? Where are the class action lawsuits?
Well, you got to need money to do class
You
action
have you
lawsuits.
have you've had a
True,
black attorney general, Eric Holder. You had back-to-back black attorneys general, Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch. Why didn't they release a whole bunch of people who are illegally behind bars? Why didn't they do that?
And,
the black president.
And I criticized him as well. Went on record because actually you're right. He lied and said that he was going to fix the crack cocaine disparity. So I went on record. You're right. And guess what? Guess who he works for? The system. So he's just a black face that works for the system at the time. So again, we just disagree on systems and institutions versus black faces in high places.
Well, the disparity has been rectified. Now you go to jail for dealing powder as you do for dealing crack. And at one time there was a disparity.
No, you go to jail, but the ratio is not the same.
Well, because the dealers are not the same. For example, there are more white people behind bars for drunk driving than there are black people. There are certain categories of crime that whites commit.
Mr. Elder, you're first
Depends on the drug. More whites are behind bars for meth than blacks
are. You're just going all over the place, sir. We were talking about, it's very clear.
You said drugs. It depends on the category of drug. It depends on the category of drugs. More white are involved in meth than blacks.
I gave you the category that I wanted to talk about, and you started talking about drinking. You're just all over the place, Mr. Elder, but it's okay.
More blacks are involved in crack cocaine.
Well, I thought she was talking about drugs, and then he's bringing up statistics about drugs. Like, yeah, sure. I mean, my big issue is like marijuana. Like that shouldn't be illegal. I mean, if the standard we set is alcohol, you shouldn't be going to jail for selling marijuana. It's fucking stupid as shit. It doesn't even make sense to me. So,
more whites are involved in powder. More whites are involved in meth than blacks. Depends on the category of the drug you're talking about.
And I was talking about a very clear category, and I gave you. I told you where I just criticized the black man who was in charge, and you skipped over that and went right to talking about drunk driving. So again, sir, I have no problem.
Well, he was just making general statements about different groups of people that, have, whatever, higher representation in different things. But okay, whatever.
Criticizing black Democrats. We do that. Charlamagne does that all the time. It's just the imbalance of understanding that even black faces in high places, even including yours, and Democrats, Republicans, just being fair across the board. That's all.
Well, that to me basically is no different than what Joe Biden just did with Charlamagne, which is to tell me as a black person I got to think a certain kind of way, otherwise I'm not black.
And I didn't like that either.
Well, you just did.
I didn't like that either.
You just did. You call me a black face as if I'm supposed to think a certain kind of way.
No, I said black face. I said black face in high places. I said
that is what she was effectively saying. She was Joe Bidening him.
They're everywhere. You're a black face. You're in a high place. You're running for president of the United States. That's a high place. You are a black face, correct? I said so. There's black face in high places on both sides. So it's just about being fair for me on both sides. I've mentioned three or four Democrats.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mentioned several Democrats that I have a problem with. Several, including Joe Biden. So you don't have to sell us on that. We get that. I'm just saying it also happens on the Republican side. That's all. And black conservatives agree with a lot of your messages, Mr. Elder. But when you're not balanced across the board, it just kind of lands flat. That's all.
Whose cocaine do you think it was in the White House? Since we're talking about drugs.
I have no idea. All I know is that it seems to me it's scary that the Secret Service has closed the investigation without identifying a suspect. What other kind of stuff goes in and out of the White House without anybody knowing about it? But I have no idea. I just think it's bizarre that the investigation all of a sudden got closed that fast.
And you think criminal charges should be brought against President Biden, right?
I think there certainly should be an investigation about the pay-for-play stuff that we're hearing. The IRS whistleblowers are saying that they were told to stand down in their investigation. I think there's a double standard going on, as I said earlier. For example, Donald Trump has been indicted for document possession. There is a special counsel investigating Joe Biden for document possession. But his defenders are saying, well, Joe Biden, unlike Donald Trump, turned over the documents readily when they were found out to have them. And if that's the case...
Well, yeah, I mean, Trump didn't do that, so wouldn't that be a factor?
Why is the investigation still taking so long?
Tell them how they can support your campaign.
LarryElder.com. I need $1 from 40,000 individuals, even if you want somebody else to talk about some of the issues that Charlamagne and I have been talking about for the last several minutes. I can get them front and center. So, LarryElder.com, $1, 40,000 individuals. I will see you on August 23rd in Milwaukee.
All right, it's Larry Elder.
It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
All right, cool.